the nation.
Raging Review.
The Raging Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Raging Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Alert! Ready? Who's that team ready? Who's that team ready? That's up.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
Ladies, gentlemen, children, babies, Cajun Nation, good evening, hello, and welcome to another edition of the Raging Review podcast. First of all, we want to wish everybody a happy new year. Welcome back. We took a little bit of a break. I guess we followed that same UL Christmas break schedule. Took a little bit of time off, kind of regrouped, but now we're back and ready to talk about the second half of the athletic year for Raging Cajun Athletics. So I'm here. I'm Jerry, here with Nick, Josh. Guys, it's good to be back. How are y'all?
Cold, man. I don't know if it's cold in the flats as it is in Houston, but it's been pretty miserable for the last couple of days. I know Josh was talking about some of the struggles they were having, like we're having over here. So warming up hopefully a little bit before it gets cold again.
Live from the frozen tundra of Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yeah, right.
I appreciate the opportunity to be on you guys' show.
Oh, by the way, I got to shout out to my brother and my sister-in-law, Coach Doe and his wife, getting me the USL cap. I've been wanting this for a while, and they hooked me up for Christmas. So thank you. I think my sister-in-law might be watching, so good job.
Nice job, Coach Doe. Very, very good.
Very nice. Taking care of his people. We like it. We like it. And of course, we want to thank the people that take care of us at Raging Review. Want to thank our sponsors real quick.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for joining Raging Review for another weekly episode. We'd just like to encourage you to patronize our great sponsors like Dr. Brett Venable and Recovery Chiro Med. Have you been in a car accident or hurt yourself lifting on the job? Are you having neck pain or back pain, but really don't want to deal with a long, drawn-out process? Then call the chiropractor Raging Cajun athletes use for their neck and back pain, Dr. Brett Venable. The bottom line is, you just need to feel better. You need to get better quickly. That's where Dr. Brett Venable comes in to make all the difference. Dr. Venable and his integrated team of rehab, chiropractic, and medical doctors have 3 locations in Acadiana to serve you: Opelousas, New Iberia, and of course, main office in Lafayette. Dr. Brett Venable is one of very few chiropractors recognized by the state of Louisiana as a chiropractic specialist. He is also the only chiropractor in the Cajuns Healthcare Alliance and the only chiropractor on the board at Tulane School of Professional Advancement. Before you start to stress about the process, remember, this is exactly why you pay for car insurance. These situations are exactly why you carry workman's comp. There's no need for a court date. Your first call should be to Dr. Brett Venable and his great team at Recovery Chiro Med. No hassle, no waiting, and quick relief. Come and find out what our Raging Cajun athletes and over 10,000 Acadiana residents already know. For more information, call the Lafayette office at 337-988-2188 or visit recoverychiromed.com. recoverychiromed.com. We'd like to thank Dr. Brett Venable for being an RCAF member and the exclusive chiropractic sponsor of the Raging Review podcast. Also, a huge thank you to Absolutely Embroidery and More. We know how much Cajun Nation loves their gear. At Raging Review, we get our gear from Miss Phyllis Thibodeau and the team at Absolutely Embroidery and More. Absolutely has a massive inventory of Raging Cajun apparel to choose from. If you can't find something you like, Absolutely can make something you'll like right there in the shop. And if your creation proves to be a popular item with customers, Absolutely will give you a little incentive for helping out with the cause. Bring in your vermilion and white shirts, hats, shorts, socks, dresses, jackets, sweaters, or whatever garment you need to represent the Cajuns. Absolutely also offers customized embroidery services to promote your business on hats, polos, uniforms, etc. Absolutely rounds out the collection with an assortment of exciting accessories for the Lady Cajuns in your life. Earrings, headbands, bracelets, clutches, and bags are just a few options to complete her spicy look. Pass by 3010 Collie Saloon Road in Lafayette and see the wonderful ladies at Absolutely Embroidery and More today. They'll treat you to quality Cajun clothing, complimentary gourmet cookies, and a friendly conversation. And if you're an out-of-town Raging Cajun, visit them on the web at absolutelyembroideryandmore.com or visit their social channels on Instagram or Facebook. There, you'll find pictures of what the ladies are putting on the shelves in real time. Once again, folks, please support local businesses and please support businesses that support the Raging Cajuns and especially the Raging Review podcast.
And once again, thanks to our sponsors, Dr. Brett Venable, Recovery Chiromed, as well as Absolutely Embroidery and More. It's always good to support local. And of course, we got to show love for our local businesses. Also, too, I'm going to start doing this in the next couple months. I've got to give a shout out to right now with everything going on with NIL. Yes, we do have NIL efforts at UL that we want to give a shout out to. The Crew Along. Just to give you guys an idea, the Crew Along has been around for about 6 months now. The Crew Along exists to enhance the experience of Raging Cajun student athletes and provide experiences for them to connect with our engaging and enthusiastic fan base. They help student athletes monetize their name, image, and likeness through experiences and connections in the community. These experiences will connect our student athletes to families and businesses. The mission of the Crew raises funds and makes connections to provide name, image, and likeness opportunities for UL student athletes. That also includes the individual, the fans. Right now, we're in a very, very much an evolving world. We've seen how crazy the portals has gotten with NIL. We've lost a few key players to that, which we'll talk about pretty soon. But if you have a chance, donate to the Crew. You can give anywhere from custom one-time payment, anywhere from $10 to $20 to $20,000. Any amount of money is a huge help to help with NIL, especially at the University of Louisiana, because that is what college sports has turned into, like it or not, as John Aiken had said before. So now it's time to evolve, help with the Crew as much as you can. So with that being said, guys, again, it's good to be back here. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. I figured since the last episode where we talked a little bit about the portal and NIL, we could sort of pick up from where we left off. We could pretty much talk a little bit about what's going on in the football world. I know college football season is completely over with. We'll talk a little bit about basketball. There's some changes within the athletic department with season tickets. I know they had some season tickets information go out for football today, actually, having to do with the adjustments of seating at Cajun Field. For those of you wondering if you've passed by Cajun Field, I had the chance to pass by last night, and it looks like a lot of the rubble's pretty much gone. Josh, I don't know. I know you live pretty close to there, but if you pass by it now, the area where the upper deck once was, there's still some rubble there, but it looks like the ground has flattened a little bit. You can actually see the wall of the student section on the other side from Bertrand. So they're really moving along with this project. And I know fans have asked us to take some pictures and give some updates. Really haven't done much since they took down the upper deck. I plan on doing so in the next couple days. But anyway.
Well, have no fear. We'll get some footage for you, some good stuff, special from us in the next week or so. So, yeah, just hang on tight. It's nothing really worth seeing right now, and that's why I haven't been out there, but I have something special in the works.
Very nice. Very nice. And yeah, we'll give some updates, and hopefully pretty soon, once they get all that going, the process will really get going with some construction and whatnot, and some foundation building. Also too, we'll also give some updates at Teague Moorfield at Russo Park. We were able to post some pictures from last week. Looks like the turf is coming in. It looks beautiful. I know you guys have seen it already. I know a lot of our fans have checked it out. I know some fans have gone in and taken some pictures. It looks great. Very exciting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some baseball being played on that new surface. Nick, do you have more information on that?
Yeah, no, other than I went and I took a sneak peek of it. But I will say what I did like about it is the fact that even though it has the stripes, it's not as dramatic as some of the fields that you see around the country where the stripes are just so pronounced and it looks fake. It looks real. It looks good. And they didn't have, I don't know if they put the Raging Cajuns in the outfield by the time you guys went out there, but the Raging Cajuns in the outfield didn't look obnoxiously big. That's what I was worried about. I was worried that there'd be a big Raging Cajuns in the outfield. And it looked from the stenciling that I saw that it would be pretty reserved and nice and okay. So I'm okay with it. It remains to be seen if I'm going to like seeing turf as the pitcher's mound, but my brother guaranteed me that they all prefer having the turf on the pitcher's mound just for maintenance reasons, etc. I am going to be upset because I will not get to see Gunner do his little manicuring of the pitcher's mound again, and I won't hear Dan McDonald say for the umpteenth time, well, we're going to have to go to Home Depot and get some brown paint and rub it in there to match the turf. Very upset on those two things, but other than that, I think for the most part, it's going to be, I'm not going to say for the most part, it is going to be a definite upgrade to what we've seen. When you see the before, I think somebody posted on our account the Put Me in Coach, the center field video from a couple years ago. You look at that and the field, the way the field looked, and the field looked fine. But when you put that against what it looks like now, it's like night and day, man. I mean, it just looks so sharp. So really excited to see that be finished and ready and to go for opening day this year.
Yeah, and speaking of opening day, we're 30 days away officially today from opening day at the Teague, as the Cajuns will open up against Wright State February 16th. So that'll be a lot of fun. And of course, softball is less than a month away. They'll be playing in 22 days as they open up against Chattanooga February 8th, I believe, the weekend right before Mardi Gras. So Diamond Sports right around the corner, guys. I'm fired up. I'm ready.
By the way, I want to say again to Dave Schultz, I'm calling you out, man, because I didn't catch it. I had to listen to the replay where you said baseball had a terrible home schedule. Bruh, baseball has a really nice schedule. You're playing Rice at home. You got Southern Miss. Wright State is now look, Wright State is not maybe well known to those outside of college baseball.
Team.
They're a regional team. They're a good team. We have good teams on the schedule this year. So I'm calling you out, Dave. This is a solid schedule. And look, we had Brian Benton a couple of years ago explaining RPI, and RPI is not all about scheduling the highest RPI teams. You want the teams that you can beat, but have a middle to upper RPI. So it's not necessarily all about us scheduling top 10 RPI for home games. You got to play the RPI game. Brian's got that down to a science, and it seems like our coaching staff is listening to him or understands the way of the world these days, because it's not all about just beating upper echelon RPI teams to elevate your RPI. It has a lot to do with who they're playing, and plus, are they a beatable team, and what is their RPI in the top however many, not necessarily the top 10. So I think it's a fantastic schedule. It's all teams that we know. It's all teams that we respect. So I'm excited for this season, man.
Yeah, you look at a team like Wright State, I don't think they're going to be one of those teams where you look at the end of the season and go, why did we schedule them? They're one of those teams where you look at it and go, okay, they're going to make a run. They're probably going to find a way to get into a regional, and if they don't, they'll be one of those, first four in, last four out type team. So no, it's very exciting. Looking forward to that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we discuss baseball in the next few segments. But first, let's talk a little bit about football. We'll start off with the portal. Obviously, the last episode we had leading into Christmas was when Zion Chris announced that he was going into the portal. It's a few days after that, Zion officially announced he is now a quarterback and a member of the Houston Cougars football team. And so Zion has entered the portal. Since then, Cam George, Acadiana star, he entered the portal. Really didn't play much this year. I was kind of disappointed in that because I thought Cam was going to be a great player for us. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. But, guys, I got to tell you, maybe it's just me, and I know losing Zion was what really hurt and was huge for us. At the same time, I look around the conference and I look around college football. As of today, 2,100 players. 2,100 players, which is equivalent to 20% of all D1 rosters, have players in the portal right now. I mean, that is insane. And if you look at even the bigger schools right now, right? Nick Saban officially retired. Kalen DeBoer are coming in at Alabama. They've lost a lot of players, and it looks like there's a total meltdown in Tuscaloosa right now because even the Alabamas of the world are losing players. I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Harbaugh ends up going somewhere else and Michigan loses players, defending national champs. So it's just crazy what the portal has turned into. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I mean, we keep saying things have to be fixed and things are getting fixed, but you look at the fact that we're in mid-January and the portal is still open for these teams and may be open, like you alluded to with Harbaugh at Michigan, and then now you've got teams that are losing players, but have a the pool's not as big as it was a month ago, right? So they're actually getting penalized for winning a national championship. If they lose their coach, they're getting penalized for playing later into the season because a lot of those guys who were in the portal, the 5-star, 4-star, whatever, they've already signed to different teams, committed elsewhere. And so what's left for them to pick from? So the advantage is all gone for an Alabama because now they have to pick from a pool of folks that haven't been picked by other schools, and they're losing their top players to go elsewhere. And who knows where they end up? I mean, you saw Trey Amos, third school in 3 years, So look, again, the grass is not always greener. I think reality is starting to set in for some of the guys who are out there not getting picked up. But the fact of the matter is, it's still going to continue happening. This is not something that we're going to say, well, let's say Zion never starts a game at Houston. Jordan Brown, he might play for Memphis again. We're not sure. That's all up in the air. But is it really going to discourage players? I don't think so. And look, the UConn coach came out on Twitter. I'm going to pull this up real quick, so bear with me. He came out and said something to the effect of, this relationship is one-sided because the players have all the advantage. The players have all the leverage. The players are the ones that say, I got to pull this up. Oh, give me 1 second. Because I want to pull up exactly what he said. It made sense to me. He said, I don't want to look at Mickey Loomis. How do you coach in an environment where the players feel like they owe you nothing and you owe them everything? And that's the truth. You got 18, 19-year-old kids that say, you have to show me the money. You owe me everything. And by the way, even if you give it to me, I'm not committed to stay here more than a year. Now, to be fair, and as someone else said, coaches have been doing that for years. Coaches have been leaving signing a whole class of student athletes and then leaving 5 days later. They've been doing this for years. But you have to take into account, this is 133 coaches, and we're talking about, like you said, 2,100 players in the portal. That's a big differential, right? That's not even. So I get the argument that the coaches have been doing this for a while, but you're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids with all the power and get to call the shots. Oh, and by the way, there's no contract involved. At least coaches have contracts where the schools can get compensated if they're taken. If it's in the contract, they can get compensated if the coach is taken. You got nothing with these kids. So you're paying for their education most of the time. You're paying for their health care. You're probably paying insurance on them. And then they come for a year and leave. And you got nothing. You spent all this money on them plus NIL. And they get to say, well, you know what? Not happy. I'm out. It's not sustainable. And no matter what we say, I know in a perfect world, we say, well, these kids will learn. They're not going to learn because you got people locally in the city of Lafayette that are shopping our players to other universities before the players even know they're shopping them. There's a problem here, folks. There's something that's got to be regulated. But will it happen? I don't know. I hope it happens, but I have no confidence anything's going to change.
Well, I think it's like I said about a month or so ago, and it always happens this way, right? And we've talked about this many times. The only way things change is when the big schools get affected by it. It's like our friend from Southern Miss, Ryan, he brought it up. He said the system they created is finally biting back. But notice how that always happens, right? Recruiting scandals, any type of illegal activity that goes on, right? The Southern Misses and the ULs and the Troys of the world, that happens to us. We get made an example of. But when that happens at Alabama, like it's happening today, and all of Tuscaloosa is freaking out, and then people are worried about what would happen to Michigan if Jim Harbaugh ends up taking an NFL job, or what's going to happen if this particular P5 school loses 20 players. And now all of a sudden it's a big deal. Now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this. Well, where was this when Louisiana lost 14 starters in the last 2 years?
Well, let me ask you this, Jerry. What makes you think that anybody other than Alabama cares right now? It's a big deal to Alabama, but to a TSAB or to a Texas, they don't care. They're profiting off of this.
But they'll care when they start losing the same. When they start having to go against the USCs and the Miamis and the North Carolinas and the Michigans and fight, having to bid the highest bidder for a player, and they start losing those players after investing millions, they'll care. They'll be screaming next to them.
But guess who won't care at that time? The Alabamas who've got to figure it out, Michigans who's got to figure it out. So they're all like, well, we're not doing anything about this. So it's going to be cyclical. So hold on, let me try that again. It's going to be cyclical. Teams are going to care when it affects them, but as a whole, the programs are just sitting back laughing at Alabama going, see, we told you, haha. They're not going to do anything because it's hurting Alabama. That's what everybody wants. Now, again, like you said, in a couple years when the cycle completes and Alabama's okay and Michigan's okay and Washington's okay, and then it's hurting TSAB and Texas, well, then all their fans are going to be up in arms, but Alabama's going to be like, we ain't doing anything about this. We're good. So when is it going to get fixed? I don't see it getting fixed, Jerry. It's just going to be a different program every single year. And the other programs that are set at and got it figured out after that point, they're going to be like, well, not our problem.
What you got, Josh?
Not much. Nick said most of it. I just think that we're speeding down a highway of these players are going to become employees of the university.
Agreed.
I see a commissioner. I see a salary cap. I see revenue sharing. I don't
unions.
There will be unions. That case was litigated 3 years ago now. That feels like 30 years ago. So that's where we're headed, and I think that the reason why it's such the wild, wild west, as we call it, is on purpose, so that we will. It's basically you are speeding up the process of getting to the end, and I think that that's inevitable. And look, dude, I feel sorry for if you're a guy like Mike who got into this a couple years ago as a head man, and everything literally changed as you were filling out your roster and your coaching staff. I have empathy for those guys because it isn't the same job anymore. It isn't the same sport anymore. It isn't the same. There's nothing in this climate is like it was 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So if the guys that can figure out a way to exist until there's some sort of legislation, rules, I don't know, guide rails, whatever you want to call them. Until that's in place, it's all you're guessing, essentially. I think it's kind of amazing that we only lost the guys that we lost. And if you look at the people that we added, transferred in, there's some impressive names, at least on paper. You got to get, as much as we bang on Mike for in-game management and things like that, you got to give him a lot of credit for managing the roster over the course of the offseason so far. You have to. I think it's surprising. It surprised me. So that's where I'm at. I mostly care about the Cajuns and all this. It's like Nick said, everybody in Alabama is upset now because they're impacted. But, until it happens to these bigger schools that are darlings, blue bloods, your USCs, your Oklahomas, just like you mentioned, I don't see much changing. In fact, I see it's going to get worse before it gets any better. And in order for you to usher in change, usually chaos ensues right before that. So I think we're right where they want us to be, and we just have to deal with it right now. And it's a shame because it's killing the sport.
Well, I will say this. One thing that has really lost track in all of this stuff that we're talking about is indeed loyalty, right? There's no loyalty anymore when it comes to going to a school, getting an education, and playing football. It's all about how much can I get paid? It doesn't matter what school I'm at. It doesn't matter what I'm offered academically. It's all about, I could be, like you said, I could be playing at a place like Alabama, start every game, have a chance to play for a national title. But if they're not giving me what I want, and I have another school that may not be as good, but is offering me more money, I'm just going to leave.
But
even if the school is academically inferior to maybe Alabama, I can just leave. Bye.
But here's the deal to me. Just like in the NFL, where they get paid, and look, they get paid a lot more money in the NFL in most cases. I know some players in college football right now are getting paid more than some rostered NFL players. But beside the point, if you're not going to be loyal, if there's no more loyalty from players to universities, as there's no more loyalty from coaches to universities, look, we hammer coaches when we think they're not doing the right thing. Because one, is there loyalty there? I think with Dez, it's a little bit different, but they're paid by the university, and we never go after players because they're amateur and they're student athletes, et cetera. But I think if you're getting into this new age of when players are getting paid thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to play the game, and they're not living up to their potential, I don't want to hear anybody coming after us if we start criticizing players. I mean, all bets are off at this point. Because if you got a guy, I mean, you think about it, I'm not going to any longer get attached to players because outside of a Chandler, who's been here for 5 years, and a couple other guys on the team, yeah, you don't know who's going to be here from 1 year to the next. So I'm not going to start getting attached to any guys on the roster because they might not be here next year. So I'm going to continue to support the team. I'm going to continue to like the team and always be a Raging Cajun at heart. But the days of me, like me and Reese was one of my favorite all-time players. I mean, he's a punter, but the guy was one of my all-time favorite players. I felt like he was going to be here a while. He stuck around. He was here a while. I don't know if I can get that geeked up about anybody signing with us anymore because you don't know if they're going to be here in a year.
But you know what the fallout of that is that you're not attached. So you don't go the extra mile. You don't give the extra $1,000. You don't make the extra road game. You don't buy that extra shirt. You don't. I'm experiencing it myself. I mean, I've been a diehard Cajuns fan as long as I can remember. I'm going to tell you the last 18 months, I've probably spent less on Cajun athletics than I ever have. And that's not in protest. Some of it's kind of in protest, but largely it's because that I don't have that emotional attachment to the individuals anymore. In that same Gino Auriemma speech, it was about, the reason why the coaches got into the profession was about the relationships with the players, usually at the high school level. But if you get into it for the right reasons, even though you're getting compensated in college, you still kind of have that core about you, right? It's still about the relationships. You can't have relationships with players that everything's transactional. It's impossible. So we're creating a culture where the players are just like, you can go look on the recruiting sites and they have NIL values next to their names. It's an auction. That's what you've turned this into. It's an auction. So how can you expect Joe Blow in the seat in Lafayette or in Boone or in, wherever to be attached to anybody when they're literally just cattle? They're auctioning off cattle. That's all it is. All we're rooting for now, to quote the great George Carlin, is clothes. We're rooting for clothes. It says Cajuns on the front, so I'm going to root for you. But at the end of the day, I'm not emotionally attached. It's not the same anymore. Like, the interest is no longer the same. And the generations that are behind us, even though they will evolve with the times, they'll never understand what it meant to have a favorite quarterback who stayed here for 5 years. They'll never understand what that's like. And I feel sorry for them for that. But that is going to impact how people support collegiate athletics. Not just football, but basketball. I mean, when's the last time somebody stayed there full-time in college that was worth, as far as brand recognition or name recognition? There are no more Leitners and Jordans and things like that. College basketball isn't what it was because you don't have the star power anymore. They'd rather go get paid in the G League than play for Duke. I mean, that's wild. We grew up in a time where, in a lot of ways, playing for North Carolina or Duke, Kansas, I mean, there was more brand recognition behind that than playing for Toronto or Memphis Grizzlies, and Toronto Raptors in the NBA. It's no longer like that. I don't know. I don't know where this ends.
And I want to say again, Josh, because you said about the NIL values, I want to stress this yet again, that it's people in our own city that are using those NIL values to their advantage and shopping our players without them knowing and coming to them with offers. People in our own community, people from Lafayette that are doing that to hurt our program. And don't come at me and saying, well, it's only rumors. We've heard this from several different people very well connected to as connected as you can be to the university.
I talked to the
saying
lady
this is
myself.
happening.
It's not a rumor. It really happened. I talked to her. I spoke to her myself. It's not a rumor. It happened. But this is the downside of free market capitalism. If somebody sees an opportunity to make a buck, they're going to seize it. No matter how sleazy it is, this is where we are. And that's why you can't have a system that doesn't have any rails, no guide rails. But again, I'll say it again. This is on purpose. Nobody can tell me it's not.
It's about making money. That's all it is. It's about making money. They've seen what college football has become over the last 40 or 50 years. They've seen how much it's grown. And, when it comes to name, image, and likeness of these players. And look, in the past, I remember the Miami documentary on ESPN, the 30 for 30 to you. There were players, because the president was all about academics at the time, and players would be like, well, wait a minute. I know Miami is a great academic institution, but nobody mentions the fact that you built these nice buildings around the same time we started winning national championships. I kind of see a little bit of a pattern there. Alabama, their enrollment went up by 15,000 students during the Saban era in the first 5 to 6 years. I think they were like at 25,000 students. They went up to 40. And a lot of that had to do with sports and football. So you definitely see the pattern. You definitely see the irony behind why they want to make some money off of it. At the same time, the amateurism is pretty much gone. It's safe to say, especially now. But, speaking of loyalty and players not being as loyal like they used to, there is one player that has been loyal to Louisiana. And Nick, you mentioned his name, Chandler Fields, coming back for his fifth season. He announced a few weeks ago that he will be returning for his last year. I know he walked on senior day against ULM in November, thinking that it was his last game, but we'll be seeing Chandler for another year. It's good to have guys like that who are committed to the program, committed to the school. And, look, with Zion being gone, now it's Chandler, it's Ben, and now you've got Lunch on the depth chart. Of course, Daniel Beal from Catholic High of Baton Rouge signing with the Cajuns. I think he's going to be a good addition. So, honestly, seeing Chandler come back, as hard as it was to lose Zion, I actually feel pretty good about that depth chart at quarterback, because you do have some experienced guys and you have some upcomers like Lunch and Daniel.
Yeah, and I don't want to hit on Zion, because he's got a ton of talent and a ton of potential, but he was turnover prone. Let's not, hide behind the fact that he is prone to turnovers. And I'm not going to bash the kid for that, but we've got two very experienced quarterbacks who have significant playing time, who know the offense, who know the players, didn't lose a whole lot in the portal. So I think the future is bright at the quarterback position, and you've got two very experienced quarterbacks that next year you're going to have Lunch, you're going to have Beal, who knows who Des will bring in out of the portal or sign next year. Our quarterback room is very healthy. It always has been for the past few years, has been very healthy. So quarterback position, not worried about that over the next couple of years, as long as we hold on to Lunch and Beal, and then you have LeJean coming back, who's going to add some sort of kink in those plans. Hopefully, maybe we'll see him in a Wildcat. I know he's going to probably be a starting wide receiver. So I think we're good at the quarterback spot for the next couple of years.
Well, Lance certainly adds an element, and that's a weapon that we would really have benefited from last year, and I'm glad that he's back, and I hope everything works out, because it sounded like a raw deal. But anyway, I just want to brag on Chandler again. Grad transfer. He could have walked into any university in this country, played right away, would have been eligible right away. I'm sure he had plenty of opportunities. Here's the thing. We have to start celebrating these guys that decide to come back. We have to. And here's the other thing. The quarterback room was a net positive regardless. Like you said, Nick, we've been pretty healthy in the quarterback room for years, but we didn't lose games because of quarterback play this year. Zion was turnover prone at times. I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt for being young, kind of learning on the fly. We were down a lot, so we had to throw it on very obvious downs. I'll give him that. I still thought the guy was going to be a good quarterback. I think he's going to be a good player at Houston. However, there is no substitute for experience. We've got a guy that he's played winning football in Chandler Fields, and we've got a guy in Ben Woldridge who's played winning football. So it was a net positive last year with the injuries. As long as we don't go back to this quarterback battle in the spring, and maybe it's in the spring, but in the fall, I want a defined starter. I don't want to go back to this dual quarterback system. As long as we know who our guy is, the team will rally and they'll play. Chandler was tough. He stepped up when he needed to. He played winning football. He never whined. He didn't bitch. He didn't do anything. He was a good teammate. He was a good leader. And go all the way back to he was probably, I think he was Napier's first recruit.
Yeah.
So this guy has been through so many changes in this program. He's been benched. He's been injured. He came back against Florida State and he ate a crap sandwich for, 4 hours and he rebounded and got better for that, from that. So we gotta keep in mind what kind of guys we have in the room, not just how talented they are, but how mentally prepared and how mentally tough and how experienced they are. I feel good about quarterback going in. And I'll tell you this, we didn't lose much in the portal, but I think we can all agree that having Chandler say yes to Dez again, it gives you that extra layer of security, regardless if he's the starter or if he's the backup. Having him there makes me feel comfortable for one reason or another. I don't know what it is. I just feel better that he said yes to come back.
Culture. I mean, it feels like we talk about culture all the time. That's what you feel like you get with Chandler, is that culture. So I'm super happy. And like you said, I can't say it enough. I know I bragged about it on the X app, and DeBoot is probably beyond, beside himself right now because of him coming back. But look, I'm digging it, DeBoot. I'm with you on this one. This one felt good.
I think what makes it more exciting too, to your point, Josh, is the fact that you have somebody that has been considered a leader in the locker room. I mean, players rally around someone like Chandler and Ben too, right? And now seeing that example of him saying in this transfer portal world that we live in, that I'm going to come back for one more year, that might have motivated a few guys to stay put and not go into the portal. I mean, we don't know that, but it's good to see that leadership role and see him basically set the example for that locker room. And look, because of that, there's going to be guys that are going to rally around that starting in the spring, going into the fall. And I'm going to tell you, looking around the conference and seeing some of these guys that are leaving those other schools, I think we're in good position as far as our roster goes. I mean, prime example, just yesterday, TJ Finley from Texas State, who was considered, to me, Texas State was considered an early favorite going into 2024. Not so much anymore. Now with him being gone, he's in the portal now. So it's so crazy how things can just change in a flash. Another prime example, not just players, but coaches. You saw Kane Womack. He's officially left South Alabama to be the defensive coordinator at Alabama. Hang on. Hired. Go ahead.
We got to talk about that.
Yeah.
Finish your thought, but we got to talk about that.
Yeah, Kane Womack officially announced that he is the new defensive coordinator at Alabama under Kalen DeBoer and Kalen DeBoer, and the new head coach they just announced tonight will be Major Applewhite. So, I mean, just so much has changed, right? So many things can happen on the fly. It's not just players, but it's coaching staff as well. So, again, to believe it or not, as pessimistic as I was after the New Orleans Bowl loss, I actually feel really, really good, or a lot better, going into spring, knowing that our roster is pretty much intact for the most part. And at least we have guys that are willing to stay put and fight the good fight, as opposed to other schools that are dealing with all of this turnover right now, rosters and coaches as well.
I think the best way to put it is we didn't take a step back. I don't feel like we took a step back. Like, we lost some talent. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Kendrick Gant was a playmaker, but we replaced him with a playmaker. And we've got guys behind him that can play. And would I love to have him on the team? Of course I would. Would I love to have Zion on the team? Of course. But I don't feel like we took a step back. And I feel like maybe for the first time in 2 years, that's the case, right? I don't feel like we took a step back as we did in the first 2 years. So that's I hate to say it, but sometimes you got to stop bailing out water and kind of stabilize to where you can start gaining some momentum to go forward. But my question about Kane Womack, okay, so I don't see anybody talking about this, and I just got to say it, and I need other people to hear it. How the hell can you go from a head coach to a defensive coordinator? Look, I understand that there's a salary bump. I'm sure there's a salary bump involved. I get it. Like making $1 million and making $2 million, okay, whatever. You live in Alabama, dude. $1 million and $2 million, not a huge difference. All that. I mean, come on. The cost of living is basically Louisiana. How can you go from being the head guy to the number 3 guy? I'll never understand that. To me, that is some extreme beta energy. That's what I've been calling it.
Well, look, Ron Roberts did it when he left Southeastern to become Billy Napier's DC here. Now, granted, Southeastern.
But he wasn't working.
Right. He left. No, he was the head coach of Southeastern. He left. Now, granted, it's a little bit different going from Southeastern to become the UL DC as opposed to leaving, a Sunbelt G5.
A team that just routed
position.
Oklahoma State the year before and had.
But I think
the upside
another coach who did that was the head coach at Kent State. He left to become Coach Prime's OC at Colorado. But I think after Coach Prime basically took away his play calling, he's now the head coach at San Diego State. But there's some coaches who do that. And maybe it's the fact that they don't have as much responsibility. Maybe Coach Womack, being a defensive guy, figures, I can go to Alabama. Maybe it can be an easier step up for me to become a head coach at a P5 one day. Maybe he thought that ladder might have been easier being the DC at Alabama. I don't know.
But he's a USM guy. Like he played at USM. He coached at USM. I'm saying USM, USA. He's a USA guy. He played for South Al and he was a linebacker coach, I believe, before he was the head coach in a previous administration. My question is how, like, I can't understand the mindset of I'm a head coach. I call the plays. Or I don't call plays, but I am responsible for this football team, this organization. This is mine. I'm going to leave that to go work for a guy. I understand him and Kalen DeBoer are friends. Your Kent State is not South Alabama, I don't think. Look at the metrics. Sunbelt Conference was a P5. Kent State is middle of the MAC. Actually, they were pretty good this year, but I don't think anybody's staying at Kent State longer than they have to. If you look at the money that South Alabama spends and their budget and what they got the Mobile market wide open. I don't understand it. And he had them on the way up. They were recruiting well. Their NIL was taking off. He's got a path to the playoff in the Sun Belt now. I don't know. It could never be me. It could never be. I don't care about salary in that regard. If you live in California and you're paying 60% taxes, I guess that's one thing. But if you're living in Alabama, how much more are you making? What was the salary, like 1.1 after incentives? And he's going to make what, $2 million at Alabama? I just, that's not worth it to me if I'm him. So Nick, am I nuts?
Well, I'm not saying you're nuts, but I'm saying, like, you're talking about doubling your salary and without incentives. Like, you don't have to work extra hard to get that $2 million. Like, you're there, right? And I think NIL probably had a little bit to do with it. Not that he doesn't have the money, but the fact that he doesn't have to worry about that as much as he does now. Like, he's not going to have to do that. And maybe the guy thought he hit the glass ceiling at South Al. Maybe he doesn't think they can do any better, but he's also resetting the clock. So if he doesn't think if he thinks he hit that ceiling, he doesn't think they're going to get any better in the next year or two. He's tired of dealing with NIL. His best friend's going coach at Alabama. He's inviting him to make twice as much money and do a lot less. Some guys will sign me up. And you know what? If he's successful there, then like you said, Jerry, maybe that's an opening for the next P5 job that he could get. Maybe it's a better path in his mind for him to get that P5 job. Maybe it's his agent who's getting paid more and convinced him to go take that DC job at Alabama. A lot of factors go into it. So there's a lot to delve into to try to figure that out. But you're replacing with Major Applewhite. And you know
who is a disaster.
Disaster, man. Disaster. Not saying he's a bad coach, but as a head coach, like, yeah. I mean, you look at the history and the problems he had prior to coming to South Alabama, and they were replaying those videos of players fighting each other, him getting into it with players. It's not a good situation. So I want to feel bad for South Alabama, but then again, it's South Alabama. I'm going to hate them, so I hope they tank.
I'm glad it happened. It's hilarious. I hate. So at the end of the day, I look at the G5 as kind of an extended family, right? So when something like that happens, I try to walk in their shoes. And I just think it's ridiculous. One of their own, that's how they billed him when they hired him. He's one of our own. One of their own just said, see ya, I'm going to Bama to be a number 3. I just don't. I don't think that I could do that in that situation.
Now, let me ask you this. Let's say in a different timeline, in a different universe, Napier doesn't go to Florida. Napier stays here. Napier gets us into the playoff or a New Year's Six game. Let's say the playoff. Let's say Napier continues his success. He gets us into an NY6 game instead of Liberty this year. Now he's in the conversation to be the head coach at Alabama, right? So that just goes to show you chasing that check ain't always what it's cracked up to be in the end. So,
and if I'm an AD that's making the hire, I want a guy that can be a head coach. I want you to show me that you can run an organization. I understand that Bam is big and their brand and all that stuff, but a lot of defensive coordinators fail. A lot of offensive coordinators fail. Head coaches, that experience, understanding how to run an organization and be leader of men, that is worth its weight in gold. I mean, again, he's making $1 million plus at South Al. How much is Kalen DeBoer going to pay him? $2-3 million? I just don't think that if it's because it's a career shortcut, I think he's making a mistake. If he's going out of loyalty to his buddy, maybe that's totally different conversation altogether. I just can't believe that you would leave the top G5 head coach to go be a coordinator. It used to be the opposite. You're right.
I don't know, Josh. Look, if I'm making $50,000 doing this podcast, which I'm not, by the way, this podcast, we're all making $50,000 each. Then Josh you end up going to ESPN making $3 million, and they offer you a Pat McAfee deal, and they offer me $1 million to go. Guess what? I'm going, buddy. See you, Ranger Review. I'm now an ESPN fan, so I get it to that extent. Like, you're my buddy, and I'll do anything you want. You asked me to go over there, I'm going. Especially for doubling, tripling, quadrupling my salary, 100%. So I get both sides of it, but I understand what you're saying. If I'm the head man in charge, I want to be the head man in charge. It's really hard, but with a close friend, that's a little bit different. I think that added a little more to that.
And again, I think the responsibility, Nick, that you brought up that I didn't think about is NIL, because that entire strategy of being a head coach now, handling NIL, especially when you're at a school like a mid-major like ours or South Alabama's, that changes things, right? That changes things because now you're almost playing in the role of fundraiser to go raise money for NIL to recruit a bunch of players that you don't even know if they're going to stay next year. Nick
Saban would be a Joe Paterno. Well, not a Joe Paterno, but in the sense of he would be coaching till he's 85 years old. Had this NIL thing not happened, because the guy was in control, he could call the shots, he could bully people to go to Alabama, he could bully other coaches, he could have whatever he wants. And guess what? Starting now, he can't do that anymore. So he's like, I'm out. I'm too old for this crap. And I don't blame him. I would be out too. Guys owns how many Mercedes dealerships? He didn't need to coach, but the dude was doing it because he could. And now it's just not worth it to him anymore.
He just bought a $17 million house in Florida to go retire in. I mean, I think he's doing just fine. He's won 6 national titles. What is it? 6 national titles at Alabama. I think he's won 7 total. I mean, what more does he have to prove? At this point, he was coaching just because he felt like coaching. So I think to your point, you have coaches out there that a lot of them, that learning curve in NIL and recruiting it's a tough learning curve. And so I think, now, I don't think that's why Womack went to Alabama, but it could be. I think that there is a possibility that changes things on how you approach recruiting and how you approach your entire business model as a head coach, because now it plays into a huge role. Again, you've got 2,100 D1 players, both in the FBS and FCS levels, that are in the portal right now. That means an average of 20% of your roster. Just imagine this for a second. I mean, how many players are on your roster per team? Anywhere from 80 to 100? That means an average of anywhere from 20 to 25 of your players could leave at any time. Some of which are starters, some of which are bench players, some of which are your star players. As a head coach, that would stress me out. That would totally stress me out, especially if I'm a school that doesn't have money or has trouble raising money. That would stress me out. So I get why some of these coaches may be making certain decisions that may confuse some of us. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that as time goes on and as this whole entire NIL portal world evolves. Speaking of coaching staff, Cajuns actually made a few changes themselves. Offensive line coach Jeff Norrid departed Louisiana as he headed over to take on his new post at Duke University as the offensive line coach. Coach Norrid, I guess he figured he'd take an opportunity to co-coach in the ACC. Best of luck to Coach Norrid. Thank you for your time. Also, Coach Galen Scott decided to go coach defense at UTSA. Not sure where Coach Scott was from. Maybe he wanted to go closer to home. I don't know if he's from Texas or not, but maybe UTSA gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. So with that said, Cajuns have 2 new staff members right now. New offensive line coach from Syracuse, Coach Steve Farmer, will be heading up the offensive line here at Louisiana. Coach Steve Farmer, again from Syracuse. He's also coached at Tulsa, Utah State, ULM, and Texas Tech. And replacing Coach Galen Scott, inside linebacker coach, or new inside linebacker coach, Coach Scott Stoker, will be headed here to Louisiana to coach the defense inside linebackers. If you remember, Coach Scott Stoker was the former head football coach at Northwestern State, I believe, for a couple years back in the early 2000s. I believe we played him a few times when he was at Northwestern State. I actually brought Northwestern State to the playoff, the FCS playoff, a few times. So he actually had a pretty good track record at Northwestern State. And so it's good to have coaches like that with that type of experience coaching the Cajuns. Looking forward to both Coach Farmer and Coach Stoker sporting the vermilion and white, coaching our athletes. Also, in other news, Coach Jeff Burris. We lost a good one there. He was one of our secondary coaches. He is headed to Louisiana Tech to become the cornerback coach there, I believe. I know right now, Coach Dez, he is currently interviewing cornerback coaches or possible cornerback coaches coming to Louisiana. So, guys, just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Obviously, every year there's going to be a little bit of coaching turnover. We really haven't had many since Coach Dez took over in the last year and a half. But losing these 3 coaches, what do you guys think? And what do you guys think about these 2 new replacements who are coming to Louisiana now?
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on exactly what happened. You would have to assume that there were some tough conversations had with some of the coaches that were probably suggested that they may want to take a look elsewhere if they could. So, not going to read too much into that. Wish them all the best, and excited to see what the new coaches that they bring in. Look, I never trust a farmer, but I guess we'll trust this one coming in. Joe, it's a joke, everybody. Joe, don't get crazy. Don't go on Raging Page and saying I hate Scott Farmer. It was a joke, but we were lucky last year. You could say unlucky. I don't know. Some people will say, well, why didn't we lose any coaches? Why didn't they get called up somewhere? And then other people will say, well, we're so lucky to keep the staff. There's no right or wrong answer here. But all I know is I'm going to support the guys that we bring in, hope for the best, and happy to see, everybody kind of knock Dez for what coaching connections does he really have in college football as he gets a couple years under his belt, as he starts developing those relationships, making those connections. It's interesting to see where he's pulling from. I know Dave Schultz is super excited. Anytime we bring somebody in from Syracuse, Dave is going to be really pumped. So look, sometimes change is good. And we'll wait to see if that's the only changes that we have. It is going to be a long spring, of course, so there could be some other things in the works, but just wait and see. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything negative or positive about it. It's just going to be a wait and see. It's kind of like the recruiting. You won't really know what your recruiting is until about 4 years from now and seeing the results. That's going to be the same with the coaching. We're not going to really know until we see the results in the fall.
I remember Coach Stoker from Northwestern, and I remember they had some of their best teams. So that's a good thing. I mean, track record matters. One thing I'm intrigued about with him is his attitude. He's more of your rah-rah type guy, kind of like Coach Hud was. And I find that we've lacked that. Not that it needs to be, prevalent across the entire staff, but I do believe that you need energy guys. Mark Hockey was that energy guy for us on the sideline for many years under Napier. And, I thought that we lacked that. So I don't know how technically sound he is. I don't know how good of a coach he is. I don't know how good of a communicator he is, but I think that's kind of an interesting thing for me. And then as far as Coach Farmer, not familiar with your work, sir. Welcome. I hope that you are as good as Coach Norrid, because I remain resolute in saying that is a huge, almost irreplaceable loss for us. One of our best recruiters, but one of our best teachers. So I hope it works out with Farmer. Coach Burris, look, we basically called it on the end of the year show that there was going to be a change in the secondary. There had to be. Position coach had to change. Look, Burris, Tech announced him like 2 days after he was let go. So it was probably another job in the works, but I don't think he was going to be retained. We definitely regressed in the secondary. And I'm not saying the kids got worse. I'm just saying we were not prepared in the secondary many times this year, whether that's a position coach problem, whether that's a defensive coordinator problem, I don't know, but there was obvious problems back there. So the other thing is that Coach Galen Scott is one of our best recruiters, and he was very beloved in the locker room. I think that's also going to be a huge loss. I love Coach Giuliani. I think he's also one of our best recruiters and best teachers. I hope he's here for a very long time. I think he could be our defensive coordinator tomorrow if he needed to be. But as far as the new guys to be determined, we'll see. I think there's some things on paper that look good. Obviously, they're very experienced. They've been around. So that's a good thing. And to Nick's point about the connections with Dez, to this point, hadn't had to make a whole lot of changes. Didn't have to make a lot of hires, but here we are. So on paper, it looks fine. Let's go out and execute. Let's get better.
For sure. And it's good that we made the hires early on in the year because now they have time to sort of take in the recruits that we've already signed recently. Plus, we have another signing day coming up. They can kind of get their feet wet going into spring. So it'll be a easier transition rather than having to do a last minute hire and players have to adjust and they have to adjust. So I think it was perfect timing for that. And you've got two well-experienced guys, and hopefully the cornerback coach could follow with that. So speaking of football, again, before we move on, we want to talk a little bit about the schedule. Louisiana officially not playing Michigan State. It was stated that the Cajuns and Michigan State had canceled their matchup that was originally scheduled for September 14th. That will actually be a bye week for Louisiana now. And replacing the Michigan State Spartans, the Cajuns will travel to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to take on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. So we've gone from the Big Ten to the ACC. Cajuns will be taking on Wake on September 28th. And with that said, because of that, the non-conference schedule is officially complete. And I'll just kind of give a rundown of the non-conference schedule. Opening up the 2024 season, Cajuns will host Grambling on August 31st. The Cajuns will travel to Kennesaw State on September 7th. They'll have a bye on September 14th before Coach John Summerall and the Tulane Green Wave will come to Lafayette to take on Louisiana at Cajun Field. And rounding out, again, the non-conference schedule, Louisiana will travel to Wake Forest on September 28th. And, of course, after that, the remaining 8 games will be Sun Belt Conference play. I believe that schedule should be coming out sometime in March or April. And once we get that schedule, we'll definitely run through that. But I don't know about you guys. I thought it was I really think this is a great non-conference schedule. There's a lot of talks and a lot of back and forth on who did what and why Louisiana is no longer playing Michigan State. If you look at some of the news articles, it looks like it was stated that Louisiana had backed out of the agreement to play Michigan State. Now, I was told differently. I was told that Michigan State suggested it by some reliable sources that they didn't want to play us, maybe because it was the adjustment of schedule because of the many teams that will be added to the Big Ten starting on July 1st. Maybe they wanted to readjust their schedule. But I thought that was interesting. And Josh, you and I had talked about this off the air about wanting to discuss this. I thought that was a little strange. But at the end of the day, we got a replacement in Wake Forest, and now we just play the games that are in front of us on the schedule.
I'm happy. I'm not happy that – so here's the thing. I have some family and friends that are in East Lansing, and we've been planning for 3 years to go up there and visit. I'm not thrilled that we don't get to make that trip anymore. However, it will be a little bit cheaper to go to Wake Forest, North Carolina, than it will be to go to Michigan. And also, I like Wake Forest. They're small. No, I know they got a ton of money, and they're kind of more of an elite type college. But that whole area, that whole Tobacco Road area, and that whole east side of North Carolina is intriguing to me. So I'm going to really try to make that trip. And I perceive that to be a winnable, middling P5 opponent. I think we can win that game. I've always I kind of think about when we have these out of conference P5s. You always want to get these teams they're good, they have some brand recognition, but I don't want to get my face stomped in by Bama or Oklahoma. You know what I mean? This kind of represents something that I think our fans can get behind and say, you know what? Let's try to make the trip. We feel like we can win that game. We know it's an ACC opponent, but it doesn't have that air of inevitability with it. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that we replaced the game. I will say, as we always say, the communication on how it all went down is lacking. And then it takes only caring to fix the problem. You have media outlets saying that that Louisiana backed out of the Michigan State game, when in fact we know that that's not what happened. There are multiple media reports on the situation, and I just would like somebody in charge of our athletics department, preferably, to go out and get in front of the story and tell the truth. Because regardless of how you look at it, it does look bad on us that we backed out, but also there's a financial incentive. If we cancel the contract, we owe Michigan State $500,000. $500,000 in this climate is not good. We still aren't raising a ton of private funds. We still have a stadium to pay for. We're still, NIL is still an issue for us. There's a lot of stuff we have to pay for. So if we're having to fork over $500,000 to change a game or to back out of a contract, our donors need to know the truth on how that happened. Now, we've been told that there's a rumor. I don't know how you guys want to frame it, but basically there's some scuttlebutt out there that there was some sort of deal where we agreed to back out of the contract and no money would exchange hands if the Wake Forest payout would be more. Great. And that's fine. And I'm not trying to make it a scandal, or I'm not trying to say somebody's being dishonest. What I am saying is that the communication remains terrible, and that you can't just let the media run with a narrative that makes you look or paints you in a bad light. How hard could it be to send out a press release and correct the media narrative? It would take them 20 minutes. So now you got your donors in limbo wondering, what the hell, are we really spending $500,000 on a contract a game that we were supposed to play? Or what's the deal here? Financially, it's important. And I don't think that's too much to ask, that you communicate to your donors and your fans what actually happened.
Well, it makes us look weak, because if articles are running and article titles are running that Louisiana backs out, because two of those articles, it said Louisiana backs out of deal against Michigan State, makes us look bad. It makes us look bad. It tells people that we didn't want to play Michigan State because either we were afraid or we just, something about it. It just makes us look bad. So my thing is, get in front of it, explain to the public what really happened. Because if Michigan State was the one that called us and said, hey, can you guys schedule somebody else, I think that would be fair for us to say, no, this is not what happened. We didn't back out. They suggested it, and so we got Wake Forest instead, and be done with it.
Well, not only does it correct the narrative, it shows that we're capable of scheduling properly, taking a bad situation and turning it into a good situation. It's positive PR. So instead of the positive PR, which is correct, apparently, by everything we're being told, we're getting the negative PR that we backed out of the game. This is where, are they not aware of this? Do they not understand communication and PR? I don't think that they don't understand. I wouldn't think that professionals don't understand the media game. So why not correct it? And why not let your donors know that you're on top of the situation and you're not pissing away $500,000?
You know, Josh, what I think it is when we were so successful in baseball and now again under Deggs, when you think back in our glory years under Robe, we had a chip on our shoulder. And now under Deggs, we have a chip on our shoulder. And when we had a vet, we had a chip on our shoulder. And when we had the other two coaches, God forbid, we had a chip on our shoulder the size of the moon. And we still, Glasgow, we got a chip on our shoulder. And I don't feel like our athletic department has that chip on our shoulder. I don't feel like our university does.
David Walker had a chip on his shoulder.
He did.
Your point.
He did. Yeah, he did. You're right.
Hey, we do. I mean, shit, the way that we handle our business. Yeah.
David Walker never wanted that job. But you know what? When he got in that seat, he kind of liked it. I feel like we need some of that. Look, Michigan State is beating us at the PR battle. And it's not difficult for us to win it. We just have to have that chip. And you see it from other programs in the Sun Belt that when other quote Power 5 conferences try to talk smack or do stuff, they chirp back. And we don't do that as an athletic department. We don't do that as a university. We just stay complacent. And for some reason, we want everything to be a secret except for the select few that are privy to the information. But you say donors, I say investors. Just like a major corporation, we're investors, man. When things are up, our donations mean more. When things are down, they mean a lot less. Start treating us like investors. I know the RCAF calls us investors, but every single fan that pays $1 to attend a game, $1 to buy a hot dog, $1 to tailgate, they're all investing in the program. Start treating us like investors and not treating us that a donor that just gives money and you never look. There are tons of donors for the Salvation Army at Christmas. They donate their money and they go about their way. We got to stop treating people like we're the Salvation Army and we expect you to give us money just because and walk away and never hear from you again. We're investors. We're here to stay. So appreciate us, celebrate us, communicate with us. It's not that difficult. You would end 90% of the negativity, quote negativity, because you're being challenged. You would end 90% of that if you just communicated with us and talked to us and tell us what's going on. There should be a quarterly update to all of the investors, the fans, the investors. Should be a quarterly update telling us what things are brewing, what's on the landscape. Why won't you even talk to us about a stupid mascot that we've been screaming about for 2 years? These are simple things.
And when you bring up the fact that they don't market a damn thing, they talk about how, well, we put it on Twitter. Oh, well, why won't you use Twitter or Facebook or any of these other social channels just to give us an update? Which, by the way, you're getting crushed daily on this damn Michigan State thing. Just send out a tweet. Say, hey, actually what happened was this is actually, and it's a better deal for us, and we made this happen on the fly. Look at how great we are. Why can't we do that? We can't do it. They act like they have no medium to do so, but they do it. They use all the free medium to market, but they don't want to use it to communicate. And yeah, to your point, if that would happen to App State, they would have that afternoon, there would have been a statement out. If it happened to Southern Miss that afternoon, a statement would have been out. Marshall, same thing. We don't operate, to your point, with a chip on our shoulder, but it's like Dan says, there's nothing raging or Cajun about this administration. The only time they're raging or Cajun is when you are negative.
Yeah, no, I get it. And we give the feedback because we're hoping somebody listens. It's not just negativity. It's feedback. It's stuff that we're hearing. It's not just coming from us three. It's coming from a lot of people. So we have a platform and we communicate that as a hope that somebody responds, somebody listens, somebody gets it. This is so easy. It's easy. You just got to, like you said, Josh, one tweet fixes it, makes us feel better. We have pride in our program. We want to see our program have pride in itself. That's what I need to see from our athletic department. That's what I need to see from the university. Look, you looked at what Alabama did. They were talking about how their enrollment in academics increased from 25,000 to 44,000 just because of what football did under Nick Saban. And they paid a crap ton of money to the guy, but I guarantee you, he is the best thing to ever happen academically at Alabama in the history of the school. We can do that, but we've got to stop treating athletics like it's secondary to the university and start treating it like T.J. said when he came on, it's the front door to the university. We got to get back to that. And we got to start having a chip.
But when Martin Hall delegates per college or per major or per whatever on campus, you don't really get an inkling as much, and it's not as intuitive or knowledge-based information. It doesn't come as quickly because when you delegate, it's okay, you go do that, you go do that, you go do that. We're going to take care of what we need to take care of here. So they don't have the ears like they should with athletics. They don't have the ears like they should with these different departments and different whatever. And so a lot of times it's almost like getting mailed through horse and buggy on the Oregon Trail while all the fans are screaming and yelling about blah, 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 blah. 3 days later or 4 days later, the news gets back to them. And then they go, well, maybe it's 3 or 4 days past that. Maybe we'll forget. Maybe they all forgot about it by now. We don't have to worry about it. So
I don't buy that, Jerry. We've
On a
been
lot of-
screaming.
I'm telling you, but that's what they do.
On a lot of
I'm
issues,
telling
I
you
would
why.
agree.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm telling you why.
On a lot of issues, I would agree. Like the mascot thing, we're on day 160. I don't. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but,
160, right?
But
yeah.
but communicating a schedule change that's going to cost us $500,000. That's on Brian Maggard. He is the boss of athletics. I don't need to call T.J. Savoy to send out a tweet to correct a media narrative that makes me look incompetent or makes me look like I'm not spending money wisely for my athletic program. That doesn't take calling Martin Hall. That takes caring at all. That takes telling an underling, listen, this is wrong, obviously wrong. The truth is a much better look PR-wise. Send it out. Send out an email. Send out a statement. Do something. That's not on Martin Hall. That's on Brian Maggard and his office.
But this is your chance to flex. Like if they're getting it wrong, this is your chance to put your name out there, get some recognition, get some free pub, make people laugh about it and be like, they showed Michigan State. But I just don't understand why we can't understand the value of communicating to your investors. They're the most important people that to your program. They're the people that matter. That outside of coaches and players that play the game, they're top three of people that matter to your success. And if you continually just keep them in the dark and don't tell them what's going on, I told you, Josh, this was the first year in probably 20 that I did not increase my RCAF membership, my RCAF donation. I'm not doing it this year because we continue to be so frustrated, but continue to be asked to give more money. It's really hard for me to do that when you're not feeling appreciated by the people you're giving money to. Because again, I'm an investor.
It highlights the point. Why would I give extra money if I perceive that you're wasting it on a schedule? If you're going to waste $500,000 on a schedule issue, why would I give you more money? You're not a good steward of the money. So my whole problem is show me that you're wise with our money and I'll be willing to give more. Not me personally. We give plenty. But I'm talking about just the regular lay fan. Like you have an opportunity to A, fix the PR, B, look good, C, not look like you're incompetent with money. Why would you not do it? It takes 15 minutes to craft a tweet, send it out.
Now,
anyway,
what James is saying is true. Because if you're not saying anything, then we are as investors thinking we just pissed away $500,000.
Absolutely.
Because the report is correct.
And that's what I told Jerry. I said, how much credibility does this athletic department actually have with people? Because here's the thing. You could tell me, well, we didn't back out first. At this point, and I tell Jerry this all the time when we talk, I don't watch what they say. I watch what they do. They can say that they didn't back out all they want. The media has reported something. Nobody has sent a correction. So, I mean, if I'm just some regular person that doesn't pay that much of attention, I assume that that is correct, and I'm going to go with the fact that you backed out and you paid $500,000 to back out of the game. The fact that we're close doesn't excuse the issue. Like we had to go dig and find out the answer. But it's still correct to the point that you haven't corrected it. So in all of our minds, it's right. In all of our minds, $500,000 was paid to back out of the Michigan State game. Until he corrects the record, it will be that way, regardless of what the truth is, because that's what the narrative is now. You see.
Josh, you just create too many scandals, man.
Well, it's because I'm too negative. It's because I'm negative, you know.
But that's what I don't like is,
and I'm being sarcastic, by the way, to everybody listening. It's an inside joke, but go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
Right, but and Josh just said, we're being too negative. The thing is, again, like I said, if you it's easily correctable. If you just come out and communicate with us, 90% of what we're quote negative about, which I don't even think is negativity. I think it's reality. I think it's just us having concerns that aren't addressed. We're going to continue to chirp about it until someone addresses it. And that would take 5 seconds of your time and reduce 90% of the bitching and moaning that we have. And when I say we, I'm talking about our platform gives us the opportunity to say what other people are thinking within our fan base. It's all about communicating to your investors. Stop talking to, we're not donors. We're not Salvation Army. We're not $10 and I'm about my way. We're investors. We're here to stay. Communicate with us. Talk to us. Be honest with us. There's nothing more than a Cajun hates than somebody looking like they're BSing you, because then you lack the trust. And then once you break that trust, they're done with you. And I think that has a lot to do with the lack of attendance at certain events, is because people just don't trust the product. They don't trust the university. They don't trust the athletic department because nobody talks.
I'll even go a step further than just BSing, Nick. Lying. Some people, if they're being told different things and the truth comes out that it wasn't the case, aren't you being lied to at that point? So, I mean, if I'm giving money, or if I'm donating money or investing in the athletic foundation or your athletic department, and you're told one thing and then you come to find out the truth is completely opposite. I mean, really, you're being lied to. So you can't expect donors to give and fans to support if you're lying to them. Now, I'm not saying that's the case in this situation, but to your point, when they try to give the Baghdad Bob mindset that everything is fine as your house burns down, you're lying to people. That's what you're doing. You're lying to people. Don't lie to people. Don't lie to people that are paying your bills. Don't do that.
Raging Cajun crypto.
I mean, you're lying to people, because at that point, if I'm being lied to, why would I go to your games? Why would I give more money? So I can be lied to some more? That's the importance of messaging. Again, I don't think that's intentional for a lot of times, but it just comes off that way when you don't communicate, when you try to be very discreet on how you explain things. Like you said, Nick, we're Cajuns, man. Just talk to us. Be honest with us. Be open with us. Be real. Make sure you're clear on your communication, because honestly, if you're honest about it and if you're real about it, well, we're forgiving people too. We can say, okay, you know what? It's the way it is. It happens. Thank you for telling us. Thank you for being honest. I'd rather them mess up and say we messed up and say, hey, look, we're going to try our best to make sure it never happens again, than to just be like, oh, well, you're just being negative for bringing it up. No, man, I'm a paying customer. It's like a restaurant. I always bring it up. I go to a restaurant and get food poisoning. It's not my fault I got food poisoning. You cook bad food. Don't blame it on me for throwing up in your restaurant, right? It's kind of the same principle here.
Well, don't blame me for not coming back.
Exactly. Don't blame me for not coming back. Got it. Yep. And on that note, as we talked about this long diatribe of this schedule change, again, Cajuns will go to Wake Forest to replace the Michigan State game. Also, in other news, there was a news story that came out inside Raging Cajun Athletics. Season ticket pricing changes for all sports, especially the four major sports where season tickets do exist, which include men's basketball, football, softball, and baseball. So the per seat donation that you pay for season tickets will now officially be part of the Champions Fund. So before, as some of you know who have season tickets, if you wanted a tailgate spot, if you wanted certain perks like a parking spot, you had to pay an extra fee to get the tailgate spot or the parking spot. Well, now, because of this ticket change, the season ticket prices will pretty much stay the same, but the level of donations of the Champions Fund will be included. Or I'm sorry, the per seat donation will be included in the Champions Fund, which means you will not have to pay a separate price for a tailgate or a parking spot. So yeah, your per seat donation will now count as part of the Champions Fund. I think that's pretty beneficial. I think a lot of fans, when they actually see the pricing model, which by the way should be coming out pretty soon. I mean, we've always talked about saving money. I think this is a good way to do it if now you're including your per seat donation as now part of the Champions Fund, which will also give you a better chance of an incentive for tailgate and parking. Josh, we've always talked about that, and I guess that's a step in the right direction, man.
Well, you're gonna have to explain that to me like we're five, because it still doesn't really make a lot of sense. So basically, what you're saying is they're supplementing the cost of the ticket and then adding it to what you get credit for on the PSL.
The per seat donation is now actually going to be credited to the Champions Fund, whereas in the past you had to pay a separate amount for the Champions Fund to get a tailgate or a parking spot.
Wait, hang on a second. So the donation that you were mandated to give on the season ticket purchase was not counted toward?
It was not correct.
Are
It
you
was only
serious?
counted. It was counted as a priority. I think it was counted as priority points / RCAF. Like it counted as the RCAF, but it wasn't counted in the Champions Fund. If that makes any sense.
So tell me the difference, and I'm speaking on behalf of people that probably don't follow this very good. The Champion Fund and the General Fund, separate.
Yeah.
So what was included in the Champions Fund credit? Obviously, the PSDs were not. I said PSL, but it's PSD.
So basically, if you wanted to buy things like a tailgate spot or a parking spot, you had to give a minimum to what was called the Champions Fund.
Okay.
And per seat donation.
Do you know what those were?
Like for example, I mean, I'm looking at this right now. If you wanted, say you wanted to park in lot E where I parked, you had to give $250 to the Champions Fund in order to get the $60 parking pass. So you pay $250
separately from the General Fund donation.
Correct. So you would have to pay $250 plus a $60 for a pass, and that's and whatever you paid for your per seat donation was not included in that Champions Fund, which gave you that incentive. So now what you pay for the per seat donation, let's say for instance you have to pay, you buy your season tickets, it's another $150 per seat in the per seat donation. At one time that was not counted towards the Champions Fund. Now it will be counted towards the Champions Fund, which will allow you to buy other perks such as tailgating and parking.
I'm thrilled that they fixed that, but I got to tell you, I didn't know that. And I bet a lot of other people didn't know that either. And we wonder why we don't have season ticket buyers and tailgate purchasers, and that is ridiculous. So before this fix, which by the way, shout out to whoever did it. I'm sure it was Brandon. Shout out to you. So you're telling me before, oh God, before when I was mandated to give money to the RCAF via season ticket purchases, that didn't even go toward the amount that I gave privately to be able to get parking and tailgating. Wow.
Yeah, so basically the per seat donations, they did count towards their total investment.
Priority-wise,
but it did not count towards the Champions Fund. So it was a totally separate entity. Now they're combining it to where you won't have to give. So for example, if I have 4 season tickets in football and 4 in baseball, that's about $1,300 per seat donations. At one time, that was not part of the Champions Fund. Well, now it will be part of the Champions Fund. And just by that alone, just because I give to that adds up. I mean, if I wanted a lot B pass, which is $3,000 to the Champions Fund, now I don't have to pay an extra $3,000. Now I can pay the difference of that, which is $1,700 extra dollars. So I'm saving cost to get those perks that I wanted before. Or like a tailgate spot, a lot of times the Champions Fund per space, if I wanted an RV lot, which was $1,200, that per seat donation will actually pay for the RV lot instead of having to pay a separate $1,200 to get an RV spot for tailgating.
well, we hate money. I mean, I don't know how I didn't know that. I didn't realize that, but it's a great fix, and kudos again. But the natural question behind that, I'm just sitting here thinking, how are they going to supplement that extra income? Is there a plan in place? Are they going to charge for parking? Can you buy individual game tailgating again? Like
now,
what?
That part, I was told the entire pricing model is going to be coming out pretty soon with all of the price scheduling and everything. Now, once that's clarified, I'll go ahead and get some clarity on it. And I'll be sure to share it with everybody here so everybody can have an understanding of what it is, because it's probably a big rollout. It's going to be some changes. But again, like I just mentioned, if you have 4 season tickets in baseball and football and your per seat donation totals around $1,300, the $1,200 you would have to pay for an RV spot at football would, you save you money. Now, granted, I don't know. Now, I will say this. I don't know if they cross sports there. Like, I don't know if the full $1,400 or $1,300 would apply to the RV spot for football. Maybe it might not. I don't know. But let's say half of that, right? Let's say half of $1,300, that's $650, right? Let's say it doesn't. That means that's $650 worth that will already go towards what you would pay to get an RV lot for the Champions Fund that otherwise you would have had to pay extra on before. So you're saving about $600 just right there by the new model.
Great,
which
great
is great
for the fan, and
No,
the way
that's
it
good.
should be, because the other model is insane. But I just wonder how they're going to supplement the income, because as an athletic department, I mean, we're already $6 million in the hole. How are they going to supplement? I'm just curious about what the plan is, and I guess they didn't really address it in the release, but something that we can talk to our contacts about, and maybe talk about it. Shout out to Mike, by the way. He says that now your entire champion fund payment is tax deductible. Wasn't in the past, so that's a big difference.
Well, also too, Josh, I think it kind of plays into what we've always talked about. Hopefully, this pricing model that will be coming out, I hope that it can actually attract more people. Because remember, what was the biggest argument of why fans aren't showing up besides the ESPN Plus argument? It's too expensive, right? I'm not getting my bang for my buck. It's too expensive. I'm being priced out with a family of 3, family of 4, right? I mean, Josh, you've got a wife and kids, right? It's expensive. I think now this model can actually play into the fact that maybe it could be affordable for more people with a family of 4. You know, if they want a tailgate spot, if they want season tickets, you know, $500 difference, $600 difference goes a long way here.
Well, that's a tailgate spot.
Right.
That's a tailgate spot. And look, I don't necessarily think it's all that more expensive. I think that the argument is that the product doesn't match the price. I think that's the argument. Because at the end of the day, you know, $120 to have a 4-hour event, really not all that expensive. But when you're standing in line half the game and there's nothing for the kids to do and yada, 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 that's when it becomes an issue. I think that the product has got to match the price. So I'm glad that this is happening. And I bet you there are more than just me out there that go, hey, I didn't realize that was even a thing.
Right. I've also heard that be on the lookout, tailgate prices may change as well for the better.
Hallelujah.
Like I said, I don't want to come out starting rumors, but I do know that the new pricing model is going to affect tailgate costs. Whether it's good or bad, we're going to see. But if it blends in with this model, maybe fans could be happy. Now, again, I'm going to go ahead when the model comes out, because I know when people read it, some of them may be confused on what all of this means. Even I had to ask a few questions about it. But I will do my best to get clarity on it. So the next time the model does come out, I'll be able to come on here and explain it to everybody. And hopefully, once the clarity is explained, fans will be happy and say, you know what, maybe this is something we can get behind. And I'm glad they're doing it now, because with the new stadium being built, it's better to do it now than to wait at the last minute in 2025 when that first game is played in the new stadium. I'm glad they're doing it now, because at least going into this season where things are going to be looking a little different, they can actually implement the model and see how it works, because I know there's a lot of different situations where you're playing in a stadium that's not going to be fully completed. So might as well do a trial run.
Let me ask you this, Boomer, if you could, for next episode, go ahead and put together a PowerPoint presentation to show us exactly what we're talking about. Because
I'd love to.
I tuned you out about 10 minutes ago when you started talking about this Shaws. And when you started comparing them, I was like, I'm out. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So do a little PowerPoint, Shaws. We can put it on here, share it, and then we could show everybody what we're talking about.
Maybe we can get a special guest to explain it to us. I mean, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I'll try to work my magic. But look, I mean, we've talked about this for a long time. And so hopefully they've listened to the fans well enough to where once this model comes out, people will be happy. Let's just hope that's the case, right? Anyway, guys, also too, just a heads up, I know I mentioned it earlier, but season ticket information is out for Cajun Field. Of course, we're playing in a stadium that's not going to be fully complete. I want to take a guess and say that maybe they might have around 20 to 25,000 in seating capacity this year. So that's going to change the entire model on where you sit. They're moving the student section to the southeast corner. The visitors section will be in the northeast corner next to the hill. And most of your premium seating will be on the student side in those 3 or 4 sections where the red zone is, which is why they're moving the students over to the corner. I believe the Pride of Acadiana band will be in the corner as well. No, the Pride of Acadiana band will actually be in the end zone, and single game only tickets will be applied to the hill, which is where I'll probably be with Allie and Kayla as she runs up and down the hill. It'll be pretty fun to watch the game from there with the way the setting is all set up. Also, Yeah, exactly, man. I've learned to fall in love with the hill the last year or so. Also,
Just
too,
don't throw your football over the shaws because
no, don't
that
do that.
causes problems. Yeah.
It
I'm gonna
causes
fight somebody.
problems.
Bring your
Exactly.
cardboard box so you can slide.
Slide down. Also, too, there is a new parking. There is a new parking chart up. Once again, our efforts to try to charge for general parking has failed. Came up short. They're going to be charging for parking all along the lots. You'll see anywhere from the tailgates, the RV lots, to lots B, C, D, and E. All have a Champions Fund minimum. The price per pass for most of them will be $60. But because of the construction, they will be moving some lots. For example, C and D will be moved back. Lot B will be at the in a smaller area off of West Congress, and Lot E, believe it or not, will be at on the side of Cajun Dome Boulevard. Which, I mean, honestly, I'd probably prefer the park there next year anyway, because we're going to probably be sitting on that side. So I'm not really going to fuss about parking this year. It is a little bit different because of the construction. I'm willing to give it another year and see what happens for 2025 once the stadium's built, how they're going to handle parking. This year's a little bit different because of the construction. So I'll let it go. I'll throw my diatribe out for a little bit, but I'll let it go this time around.
Good. Can we get done with the infomercial and start talking about what the people want to hear? Chairman
Let's
Marlin
do
and
it.
the boys won by like 37 points tonight.
We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. Do y'all want to talk basketball first? Or y'all want to talk baseball, softball? I figured we'd wait until the game was over before actually yapping
It's
about
over.
basketball.
You're good.
Okay. Well, let's get to it. All right. So I'll bring up women's basketball first. We'll talk about that briefly, and then we'll go right into men's
Hooray.
basketball. I'll be quick. All right. Women's basketball. Look, they got a big win in Arkansas State the other day.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That was a very
Huge
nice come from behind
comeback.
battle. Yep.
Huge comeback win. They won the game 64-63. The Cajuns now sit at 6-8 overall, 2-3 in conference play. Since we last spoke, they have 3 losses to App State, JMU, and Troy, but they were able to win a few on the road against Old Dominion as well as Arkansas State. They will be back in action tomorrow night, which is a Thursday. They will host ULM in the Cajun Dome at 6 p.m., and they will also host Troy this weekend on Saturday at 2 p.m. Both games will be on ESPN Plus. You can listen on the Varsity Network, 103.3, as well as 1420 a.m. And of course, both games this weekend at the Cajun Dome will be free. All right, men's basketball. Cajuns play Texas State tonight. Since we have last talked, the Cajuns are 4-3 on the hardwood. They've had wins against Rice, Coastal Carolina, as well as Arkansas State. They've had losses against Marshall, JMU, and Troy. With this win tonight, the Cajuns defeat Texas State by the score of 86-68, rounding their record now to 10-8 overall, 3-3 in conference play. And it was pretty much a dominant game tonight. I was able to watch a little bit as we were talking. Just a complete game overall. Cajuns were over 50% from the field. They weren't as hot from 3-point range, but they did make 10 3-pointers tonight. One thing I find about Cajun losses this year is anything below 6 or 7 3-pointers, they usually lose. But tonight they were 10 for 26 from the 3-point line, whereas Texas State was 1 for 13. That was a big difference maker. Cajuns were also 8 for 12 from the free throw range or free throw line. And they were only out rebounded by 2. So that's a win in my book with the way the Cajuns have lacked in rebounding this year. Just to kind of talk about some lead scorers real quick. Cajuns were led by Mr. Kobe Julian, 18 points, 3 assists, and 6 rebounds. Of course, Karen Crow Joe still on a hot streak, 10 rebounds, 8 points, 1 assist, and 2 for 6 from 3-point range. Hosanna Katinje finding his groove. Looks like he's been on a roll. 11 points, 2 assists, 5 rebounds. And also got to give a shout out to Thamus Fulks doing his thing. 13 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds. And of course, Kentrell Garnett, 11 points, and he was 3 for 7 from 3-point range. So that's 2 in a row for the Cajuns on the road. Yeah, guys, it was a very dominant win tonight. Probably one of the more dominant wins we've seen all year, especially on the road against an in-conference foe in Texas State.
So before you go, Josh, because I know nothing about basketball, first of all, I know nothing about basketball, but I told you Hosanna was going to be the man this season. And Jerry, you were like, oh, well, he's got a lot of growing up to do. Well, whatever.
He did.
Well,
he
guess what?
did. Come on.
He grew up fast, and he's the man. Okay, so I said that not knowing basketball. Secondly, DeBoot said we would go 5-0. And guess what? We're 2-0 since he said we would go 5-0. So I'm just saying, I'm starting to believe in DeBoot that he has some kind of crystal stalls at his house that he looks in back in the Barry and says, what is Cajuns basketball going to do? And they do it. So I don't know. I'm buying into what DeBoot is saying these days.
You heard it here on Raging Review. DeBoot is a witch. All right. Look, I'm gonna do something that probably nobody's expecting. I'm gonna give Marlon some credit here. Shout out to Faux Marlon with the great, hilarious content. Chairman Marlon is what I'll be referring to him henceforth. But listen, you got to give them credit. They've adjusted how they play basketball. The offense is now running almost exclusively through the paint in Katanje. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. But look, feed the big man, dude. I mean, feeding the big man still works in 2024. That type of offense. Look, we don't have a lot of motion in our offense. We don't do a whole lot of stuff. We don't run a lot of screens. Not a ton of pick and roll, but that high pick and roll with him and Garnett works because it'll, the pop shot with Kentrell Garnett more often than not gets him open. And when he's open, he makes it. So look, I don't know what the ceiling is for this team, but I will say this. You have to give the coaching staff credit for adjusting what they wanted to do. I assume that they went into the season thinking they were going to have Jordan Brown and they had a certain idea of how they were going to look offensively. Obviously, that didn't happen. I think a lot of guys were new, young, learning the system, yada, 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 whatever excuse you want to throw out. It's very obvious that they're trying to forge an identity. And I think that it's basic and fundamental and we can laugh at it. But at the same time, there's a lot of teams that we play that don't have an identity. So you got to give Marlon some credit on that. I will say this. I can't tell you maybe 4 or 5 years. This is the most defensively active basketball team we've had here in a long time. Their effort is there every time they step on the court. And I won't try to pretend like I didn't watch the first 4 or 5 games of the year. I probably started paying attention more intensely. McNeese, probably about McNeese. There's not ever a time they take the floor where you say that the effort wasn't there. They always come out and play hard. Regardless of how talented they are, they play hard. They give 100% effort every single time out. So I got to say, shout out to Chairman Marlon and the assistants. Shout out to the effort. The guys are making plays. Kobe Julian looks like he's starting to play some big time basketball. I like Katenge. He changes the makeup of what we are as a basketball team. And anytime you have a real inside presence, look at what we did last year. Anytime you have a legitimate inside presence, you can compete with anybody. I thought we should have won the JMU game. I still say with a competent officiating crew, we do win that game. Those bums, those overrated bums who have shown to be overrated since the game. Shout out JMU. We told you who you were. Dennis Green voice. We knew who they were. But look, I'm all in on this group. I love the effort. We've made our peace with Marlon. Everybody knows where we stand. You still got to be able to give professionals credit when they do their job. Marlon's doing his job. They've evolved as a basketball team. Shout out. I mean, kudos to them.
By the way, before you go, Jerry, I just want to say, can we, whoever the basketball SID is, could we get word out to visiting radio and TV guys that it's not Colby Julian, it's Julian? Like, we're not julianing fries. It's Julian. It's simple, just like it's freaking spelled. That drives me nuts. Why do people try to make things more complicated than they are? It's Julian.
Because look at our last names, all right? Name a time where somebody said your last name and they didn't try to put the accent in the wrong spot.
Oh, dude,
that's just what they do.
Q in my name all the time.
Yeah, Jagano. Like what? Just say it the way it's spelled, dude. Relax.
Yeah, Andy's got a good point. Josh giving Marlon credit and multiple shout-outs to DeBoot. Yeah, 2024 started off with a bang for sure.
DeBoot is like the mutt that you picked up out of the litter and he's wiggled his way into our hearts. That's what he is. I mean, come on.
Hey, the man can shoot some free throws too now. Eventually, we're going to be seeing that showdown between Man About Town and Daboot. It's
I'm
going to
gonna
happen.
spank the boot's ass.
It's going to happen, man. It's going to happen. When we have some time, it's going to happen. And Rage and Review will be there for the play-by-play. But it was, look, I'll say this. I think in the last two games, what we've seen with this team is a complete team, right? The losses we've had to depend so much on the three-pointer. And one thing we've learned is we've lived and died by the three so far, right? Anything less than 6 or 7 three-pointers, we're not going to win the game. But when you have Hosanna Contingent coming in and supplement the inside presence, and even Joe Charles, I've even said Joe Charles needs to be somebody besides rebounding to go up down the lane and hit some layups. And he's done that. He's made some three-pointers. When you have that to complement guys like Kobe Julian, of course, Kentrell's going to be the three-point shooter. When he's on, when Kobe's on, and Thamus is on, those two, the thing about Thamus and Kobe, when they're able to move down the lane and be as smooth as they are, it opens everything else up. When Kentrell starts hitting the three, when it sets up the inside game for Hosanna, it all just blends in. And I think we've seen that these last two games. I've noticed we've seen that these last two games. When they play as a complete team, they're unstoppable. And I'm hoping going into South Alabama this weekend that they can bring that same type of energy, because if they're able to do that, I think we have a 4 or 5 game homestand after that. That's going to be huge. You could actually make a run off of that.
Yeah, you can make a move in the league. And if we want to get in the weeds just real quick, like you look at a Joe Charles, right? I don't know if Joe is physical enough to be a down low banging power forward 4. I don't think that that's his game. But you can look at Joe as a Euro 4 where he can stretch the floor and fix your spacing issues, and he can open up the offense. And I think that it's become a little bit more defined over the last few games. And I think the fact that the offense is starting to get better, as Ryan said, the offense is starting to gel. One of the reasons why is because he's had a more defined role. You look at Thamus. I don't know what happened with Thamus over the last couple of games, but he started turning the basketball over too much. And tonight he didn't do that. Sometimes it is just that simple. Stop turning the basketball over. Stop making bad decisions. Sometimes we start to speed it up and we get out of control and we make bad decisions. It happens. You look at Hardy off the bench. I think Hardy's an X factor. He's physical. He can shoot. He is a good passer in transition. I like the way he gets out in front. So I think that you put all those things together. Katanje's getting better, and he knows his identity. What did I say? Okay. All right. I figured I said something wrong or said a cuss word.
It's me. Nick's looking at me.
Oh, because of the ice?
He's making looks at that cup, and I can't not look at him.
Try to professional podcast here. So anyway, the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of guys that have kind of stepped their game up. They fit into their role, and the team is forging an identity. And I don't even look at the results. I'm not even looking at the wins and losses. I'm looking at what I see on the floor, and what I see on the floor is maximum effort, an identity, and some adjustments. You got to give kudos to the offense. To the coaching staff and to the players for both of those things. They obviously like playing together. I like Julian a lot. The thing about Julian is that he possesses the talent to go up against anybody's best player in a tournament situation, a win or go home situation. He's going to provide you that talent, that level of that elite player, especially if he's feeling good down the stretch. So that's great. I don't know, man. I know a lot of these teams are ass that we've been playing, so I don't really look at the results based on who we're playing. I'm just trying to find something on the floor that I can be optimistic about going forward.
Thank you, Josh. That was totally unprofessional. And everything you said was right.
And look, to Jacob's point, I know he didn't play the last couple of games, but I'm saying leading up, I think the last time I saw him play was Coastal. So I think he got injured at the end of Coastal, maybe after that. To the point of Coastal, he was starting to hit his stride. And I still think that he's your X factor off the bench. He brings a lot to the floor.
Well, I think, look, for me, again, as a casual non-basketball fan, it doesn't feel like street ball anymore. Like, it looks like they actually, I don't know if that's just me looking as a non-basketball person or if people who are basketball people see this too, but it just doesn't feel like street ball. It looks like they have a game plan. It looks like, again, Hosanna, feed the big man. Like you said, it looks like they're doing that. It looks like we're not living and dying by the three as much as we were earlier in the season. And, you know, as you said, got to give maybe credit to the coaching staff that they're making adjustments and realizing that they can't win that way, you know, the entire season. There's no way. I mean, no team can just rely on the three and then have nothing else. And it looks like they're making some adjustments, and that makes me happy.
Well, look, we never said that Marlon is a total bum. We said he's average. So when you're average, you get it right sometimes. So, you know, you gotta get right. You gotta give him kudos when he gets it right sometimes. Look, let me make the comment. Andy said a great thing. He's talking about how Michael Thomas has been coming off the bench and has been real solid. The fact that they moved him to the 2, and maybe he's still playing some spot point guard, but when he moved to the 2, and I think it was against Troy that he had a real strong game. But I might be misremembering. Shout out Roger Clemens. Anyway, his play at the 2 has been a big difference maker for me. So if he can keep making threes and keep making good decisions with the basketball, absolutely. And then the last thing I'll say about basketball before we move on, I know you guys want to move on. How do we feel about Jay's nickname or not nickname, but his catchphrase for Hosanna? When he dunks it or when he makes a nice play or a block, he says Hosanna in the highest. How do we feel about that?
The same way I feel like when he said the prophet Elijah, like it's just,
it was like he workshopped it on the air.
It's a radio. Look, the guy from Troy, when they scored touchdown, they say touchdown men of Troy, which I think is the dumbest thing ever.
It's pretty bad.
We had Todd Hamilton years ago when they'd get a slam dunk, he'd say slammo. Like, it's just a radio thing. I don't know. I don't buy into all that stuff, but Hosanna highest, that's a little corny.
You know, I have some irreverent humor, so I thought, I was like, at first it was like, it's funny because it's going to piss people off, and then, yeah, but it's kind of cheesy at the same time. So I'm trying to figure out where I fall on that.
I don't know.
You got to play with the innuendos a little bit. Yeah, you got to play with it a little bit. I love Jay's "Dunk You Very Much." "Dunk You Very Much" is something I grew up with Jay, so I appreciate that. Hosanna in the highest. I mean, look, if the man's doing stuff that helps us win, I don't care, right? I don't care. Hosanna in the highest. Say it all you want. If the man helps us win, by all means.
Josh, I'm just gonna say you're gonna go back and watch this video and see what I'm laughing about, and you'll appreciate it. I know it seems like a D-bag move while I was just losing it, but you'll go back and you'll realize what I was laughing at, and you'll appreciate it. So
I trust
thank you for bearing with me.
I trust
Nick's laughing escapades are like the most entertaining. They're hilarious because you won't even notice. He'll kind of smirk at you with this smile, and then if you do something else without knowing it, all of a sudden the guy's taking his glasses off, wiping his eyes because he's crying, and it's always funny to go back and look at it. So I'm actually going to look at it too, because apparently Nick really enjoyed watching me drink.
I don't know if you want to go back and look at it, my guy.
Was there a nip slip involved? What happened?
No. I guess I was eyeing my drink. I was making love to my drink. I don't know. But anyway, moving on. Cajuns will go to South Alabama on Saturday. They'll tip off at 3:00. You can watch the game on ESPN Plus. Listen on 96.5 KPEL. Got a chance to go 3 in a row before that homestand. So best of luck to the guys. Hopefully safe travels and bring back the dub after Saturday. So, like I said early in the episode, guys, Diamond Sports, less than a month away. Raging Cajun softball officially underway in less than 22 days. I believe practice has started. They're officially practicing now, getting ready for the season. Coach Jerry Glasgow and the ladies trying to do what they did last year, not only making the postseason, but making a run at the postseason. Again, they will open up at home at Lamson Park on Thursday, February 8th. First pitch will be at 6 p.m. against Chattanooga. Believe it or not, our good friend Greg Larnard is now a member of the coaching staff at Chattanooga. So it'll be kind of a homecoming for Greg. I know Greg, unfortunately, had lost his gig at the local radio station down there. Really glad to see he was able to get back on his feet and, go into the coaching world. So congratulations to Greg. And, maybe we'll see him when he comes back to Lafayette for that weekend.
Yeah, and I hope he goes home sad because we kicked their butts. So
exactly.
Congratulations to Greg. That's awesome. And I'm gonna nerd out for a second. That's I get excited going into February because you've got softball. Then right after that, baseball season starts. But on February 2nd, I'm getting the Apple Vision Shaws. that comes in. I'm pre-ordering that Friday. So I'll be probably watching the Cajuns play softball in VR or whatever. If you want to know the ultimate nerd thing, that's it. I'm accomplishing that on February 8th. But no, dude, this is when I start really getting geeked up about the spring sports, because you start getting that crisp in the air. You start getting that smell in the air, get that feeling, the butterflies in your stomach. And I don't know, man, I'm starting to get geeked up. And then you're coming to Houston for the classic. So this is a fun time of year. I'm looking forward to it.
I was telling a friend earlier today that, while the rest of the country pouts because football season is ending, I'm ecstatic because of the diamond sports, whether it's softball or college baseball. I love college diamond sports in general. I've grown to love it.
Hate basketball?
Well, I like basketball, but just everything that surrounds it. It's just. Excuse me. I don't hate basketball.
How you feel about basketball?
Yeah, exactly. No, but I have a passion. I've grown a passion for college baseball. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I love having the weekday games. I love the weekend series. I love everything about the atmosphere at the Teague. I enjoy, believe it or not, listening to the game on the radio or watching the game on TV. I can do both. I really enjoy seeing what our teams can do on a national stage, because we've kind of adopted this standard in both baseball and softball where we compete against the best of the best and go toe-to-toe with them and beat them. I don't know why you're laughing about that, but it's true.
Totally unrelated.
Oh God. Okay, I just saw it. Anyway, so that's what gets me a little excited. Look, basketball is making a decent run right now. I'm excited about that. There's no doubt. But there's something about college baseball that just gets me fired up, to Nick's point. And I guess it's because spring's coming, the beautiful weather outside, and after this, North Pole Arctic freeze that just came through. I'm looking forward to seeing what these teams can do. I know Coach Glasgow and his staff, they were not satisfied with the season ending in Washington the way that it did last year. I know they're going to be making a run for Oklahoma City. But I wanted to talk a little bit about baseball. Baseball, again, opens up 2 days after Valentine's Day, February 16th, opening night at the Teague against Wright State. First pitch at 6:00. We've got new turf, a lot of expectations. I think the standard of Raging Cajun baseball is finally getting back to what we've always wanted. 2 straight regionals, competing more on a national stage. You're in a really good conference with these 4 teams added in. You've created some rivalries with some of these teams like Southern Miss and Coastal, South Alabama, of course. And unfortunately, with the departure of Coach Jake Wells, you were also able to bring in Coach Gunnar Leger. It's pretty cool calling him coach now, but Gunnar Leger now is the pitching coach. There's a lot of expectations on the mound for Louisiana that are there. And even though we lost guys like Julian Brock and Carson Rockefeller, I feel like the Deg's hitting system is going to be able to be adapted by even some of the newcomers. Like, his hitting system, to me, I feel like there's an easier learning curve for the players that he recruits, that he brings in. And I feel like if the hitters can adjust to the new players, the newcomers who are hitters can adjust to that, complementing our pitching regime through Gunnar's coaching, I don't know about you guys, but I think this team can be really dangerous if they click at the right time. So I'm fired up. I'm ready for some Cajuns baseball. What do you guys think?
Look, I think when you consider the fact that you've got 1 or 2 teams in the Sun Belt that are in the top 25, and you're playing a schedule that includes top maybe 10 teams in the second weekend, or the second series of the season, you've got a solid core of players returning offensively and defensively. And you've got some, look, how many seasons have we been talking about? We didn't have any true starters. And now we feel like we've got some true starting pitchers, not some relievers we're trying to convert into starters. We've got some true starting pitchers. You've got Thibodeau Tib is going to be focused on defense. Deggs is going to be focused on offense. We got a true pitching coach this year. Look, I'm a buy on this team. I think this is going to be a good team. I think they're going to get better as the season goes on. That being said, we can't get ahead of ourselves and be upset if we go 0-3 in the Houston Classic, right? That's going to be a very, very tough, tournament, 3-game tournament for us to go through. Now, do I expect us to win some games? Absolutely. But again, taking L's early in the season against top competition in the country can only help us as the season goes on. So I think it's going to be another season of us trying to find ourselves in the bullpen. I think our starting pitching will probably have to try to figure out who's our true Friday, Saturday, Sunday starter. Offensively, I'm not worried. Defensively, I'm not worried. I think the question mark is going to be not if we have the talent in our pitching staff, it's going to be where they all fit. I think that's going to take some time to adjust. But then again, you typically see the hitting ahead of the pitching early in the season. I think we're going to see that this year. So again, we're going to take our lumps early in the season, but don't let that, I guess what I'm trying to say is don't let that kind of make you foresee what the rest of the season is going to be. I think we're going to continue to get better as the season progresses.
What's funny is that, of course, we played the fall ball matchup in Baton Rouge, and some of their fans I know they beat us by a combined score 14-3, and their fans, of course, were celebrating.
No, not fans. They're podcasts. Let's get that right. They were Southeastern grads excited about
they were celebrating, popping champagne at a practice game. But leading up to the 9th inning in that first matchup, I believe the score was like 1-1. And this is against the defending national champions. And your pitching staff, some of which are new, gave up 1 run until the 8th or 9th inning. I think they ended up scoring 3 or 4 runs after that. But if you're doing that against that team, and you look at some of the teams we play on our schedule, and you're able to do that with your starting rotation, I'll take that all day, because the hitting's going to complement it. Hitting with the deck system will catch up with it. So it's almost like I bring up the analogy of the Sean Payton offense, right? And of course, how we long for the days of Sean Payton again, right? But like when Sean Payton's offense was clicking, you always, the success of the Saints always depended on whether or not he had a good defensive coordinator to back him up, right? You could score 45 points. If you're giving up 50, you're still losing the game. Well, that's how I feel about this particular staff. I feel like we had the offense. We just needed some consistency in pitching. I think we got that now with Gunnar. He's basically adopting the Tony Robichaux philosophy, which that's pretty awesome that he's bringing Robe's system back. But at the same time, he knows how to communicate with those players. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises for fans when they see what we have on the mound. That's what I've heard. So I'm all about that.
I'm not going to get too detailed because I want to save it for the Kendall Rogers episode, but I'll give some overviews and some thoughts as we stand now. Anytime you replace a major leaguer and Carson Rockerfort is a bona fide major leaguer, that's concerning. There's concern there. Anytime you replace an experienced team leader and backstop like Julian, that's a major loss. No matter, I know Torres is very well thought of, and I know he's supposed to be an elite catcher. I understand that. But you're replacing somebody that the guys rallied around, they trusted, they looked up to. He was a presence in the locker room. The good thing is, or the what's something to be optimistic about is Kyle DeBarge is a bona fide superstar now. He's a perfect game All-American, national All-American. Last time we had an All-American at the shortstop position, we were pretty damn good. We will remain quality on the defensive side with Big John. My brain just went nuts. Big John at second base. John Taylor, excuse me. John at second base. Debo. This Torres kid is supposed to be the real deal defensively. I understand he can hit too, but defensively he's supposed to be where he's really going to make a mark on the team. You guys know I'm a catcher. I'm always going to look at the catcher. I'm going to evaluate the catcher more than anybody. You got to have a backstop that can quarterback the team. I'm thrilled about that. Connor Higgs is back. Connor Higgs looks to be a middle-of-the-order bat. He is good in center field. I don't know how good. I don't know if he's going to be as reliable as Carson Rockerfort, but I trust him and believe in him. Having said all that, Jack Martinez is the name to remember because he's your Friday night starter. It's not even a question. From what I've been able to gather from talking to certain folks, he is your Gunnar Leger, where the circle change and the change is his A pitch, his out pitch. His tunnel is about as good as Gunnar's was, but he also throws 95, 96. So, and there's more I could say, but I'll save it to where we can discuss it with Kendall. He is your Friday night guy, and I thought early in the season last year, one of our biggest issues is that we struggled to get off to a good start on Friday nights. The fact that we had a revolving door on Friday nights hurt the momentum of the team. We never were settled. We didn't have a tone setter. The transfer from Florida State, who ended up being really good down the stretch. And I don't know if we ever figured out how to say his name, but I'll just call him the transfer from Florida State for now. But anyway, he showed in the Miami Regional that he could pitch. And I think that you have a bona fide guy on Saturday night. When he started to incorporate the changeup and it was an effective out pitch, he became a real threat. So you got that in the mix. And think about all the guys that contributed throughout the course of the year. Sure, we have some transfers and we have some new guys, but don't forget Blake Marshall's back for year number 6. I mean, can you imagine what that guy's been through and what he's succeeded, and he's had injuries and he had to fight through some stuff. He's back. David Christie showed signs. He showed signs all year, his whole career here. I think that he is poised to maybe not necessarily be a starter, but he can contribute in many different ways. There are a bunch of names that you guys are going to remember that we kind of forgot as the season kind of finished, but I would much rather be in a position where we felt really secure on the mound and we thought that maybe hitting was going to be what we had to work on throughout the course of the season than the opposite. We know Deggs is going to figure it out. We know a Luke Uhas is going to figure it out. We know Caleb Stelly is going to figure it out. We know these young guys are going to come in, and even though they don't have a ton of hacks, they're going to figure it out, especially with guys setting the tone like Higgs and Debo, right? And John Taylor, and there are a few others. Mason Zambo supposedly had a great fall. But corner bats are going to be there. There's a guy at third base they really love, and we'll talk more about that later. We have pieces in place. The question is how fast do they come together? How do we navigate the schedule? Can we stay healthy? But I think that on the mound, we're as good as we've been since Tony.
Well, you mentioned Jackson Nezu. That's who you were talking about. Florida State. He's no longer on the team. I think he went to the draft, or did he leave? I don't see him on the roster here.
I'm pretty sure he's back.
I don't see him on here, but
he was in the fall report, so we'll have to talk to Kendall about that.
But with that said, I mean, I'm just going to go through the roster real quick as far as pitchers go. I mean, let's be honest. We got David Christie coming back, Blake Marshall coming back. We've got, of course, Jack Martinez that you were talking about. He's going to be the Friday night guy. You've got Chase Morgan, 6'3" lefty. Dylan Toyd's coming back. Stephen Cash is coming back. Brennan Moody pitched a little bit last year. Blake McGehee pitched a little bit last year.
So Andy's saying that Nezu is in the Astros organization.
That's right. Okay.
Well, I read that wrong. That's my fault.
Carson Fluno is coming back. He lit it up towards the end of the year. JT
Fluno is who I was thinking of. I apologize.
Yeah, he was a Saturday guy.
Carson Fluno is who I was thinking of. Sorry about that.
I'm reading through these names and I see the experience that's coming back, and that's learning under this new system under Gunnar. We've got some experience coming back, guys.
And by the way, you got some boys. You got a couple of guys from Cypress, Texas. One from my neighborhood who lives 2 streets down. So they're going to be some solid pitchers because they're from my neck of the woods now. I'm very excited about Murphy. Is it Murphy Brooks? Murphy Brooks and some other guy. We got a couple of guys from Cypress that are on this team. Very excited about them.
McGee Morgan's also.
McGehee, interesting. If he can stay healthy, I mean, there's another guy that could contribute in some sort of a role, even if it's spot duty. But my apologies. Fluno is who I was thinking of. He pitched great down the stretch. He really came into his own. The fact of the matter is that we've always said that if we felt like, or if Deggs would just allow the pitching coach to do his job, bring in a guy that we all trusted and the guys that he worked with trusted, this will be a totally different team. I think that obviously, and Jerry and I have talked about this, obviously, there's going to be a learning curve. I mean, he's not going to walk in here and be the best pitching coach we've ever seen. He's not going to be Tony Robichaux overnight. But Gunnar has the pedigree. He has the system. I think that when he develops the rapport and everything and he learns on the job, and maybe it's not 2 months in, like Nick said, maybe it's regional time before there's, real cohesiveness. Regardless of if it's not even in 2024, he will pay dividends going down the stretch.
Another thing is too that's important to note with Gunnar is Gunnar, he takes the Tony Robichaux system, and he's also taken years to study the analytics behind the Tony Robichaux system. He's very analytical on the things that he's learned, so he's going to be able to blend in both, right? So, what was it that we I know Rage and Review, we all gave money last year that they were raising money for. What's it called? The tracker thing.
TrackMan.
TrackMan. I didn't realize this. I actually kind of looked into it. That it's so detailed and analytical to a T, from the way a batter swings, on what he swings at, when he swings at it, and what type of pitch and how fast it comes and when they swing at it. Gunnar's got all of that data that he can study from while coaching the Tony Robichaux system. Now, just imagine, right? The Tony Robichaux system was always successful, right? What was it? The pitch by colors?
Pitching in colors, yeah.
Pitching in colors. Now include that with the analytics behind it. That's kind of evolved. Dude, are you kidding me, Nick?
Yeah,
Dude,
but
I mean,
again, like I said, Jerry, we've got, look, Martinez maybe our guy on Friday night, but we still have to figure out Saturday, Sunday. We still got to figure out bullpen. We still got to figure out who our closer is, and that's going to come with experience. And then, as Josh alluded to, this is Gunnar's first gig as a pitching coach in college baseball, so it's going to take him some adjusting. So, again, I think we need to keep that in mind now. I know we like to, sometimes we look at things through a microscope, and especially in football where you only have, 12 games, regular season, and every game matters. Like, we sometimes, our mentality is to treat baseball in the same way. And this is probably the perfect example of the season where we need to let things develop. Look, Dags, every single year, we're so frustrated in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 weekends, and we're pulling our hair out and saying, how are we getting swept by JMU? But then we turn it around and we're an at-large bid for a regional. So I think we just have to, again, trust the process, not get frustrated early in the season. We're going to be playing some damn good teams. But look, the one thing we cannot do is let Southern Miss do what they do to us for the past couple of seasons. We've got to man up and have that chip on our shoulder against Southern Miss. And I'm pointing them out because in every single sport, Southern Miss has us circled on the calendar. This has got to be the season that we start turning that around. I'm tired of losing to those guys.
Well, I think too, the deeper we get into the Dags era, the more fight I see in our team. If you remember 2020, before COVID, the first 15 or so games before the season was canceled, he basically took a team that, he had to cut some players. He didn't even know where to, I remember him saying one time that it was almost like he was moving players in the best way that he could to even survive the season, right? And then COVID hits and the season gets canceled. 2021, he basically rebuilds the team from scratch, but he has a bunch of guys that not that they didn't get along, but they didn't have the chemistry, right? And we talked about that many times during 2021. 2022, he runs off the guys that didn't really fit into the culture, kept the ones with the potential. And before you know it, it was one of those seasons, right? Start off kind of sluggish, start off kind of slow. And as the season went on, get better, get hot for the tournament, win the tournament, go to a regional. And then last year, pretty much, we had some inconsistencies because of lack of pitching per se, or inconsistencies of pitching, but we were good enough on the offensive side to put us in as an at-large. I think this year, even though we lost some of those guys, I feel like the attitude has evolved in a better way where, we could say in 2021 or 2022, oh yeah, they're bought in, but how bought in were they really? Now you have the Dags culture that's there, the Dags mindset that's there. This is year 4, year 5. So I expect the team to have that chip on their shoulder, like you talked about. That was Tony's earliest teams, and that's always been a Dags team. I think that culture, that mindset, I think it's there. I expect it to be there, and I'm hoping that it pays dividends with wins, regardless of how young they may be or how much they have to develop as the season progresses.
Well, look, I will tell you this. The one thing Deggs never did was make excuses. Whenever he failed at something, whenever we weren't good enough, or as good as, I should say, as good as we expected or he expected, he never made excuses. He always came out and told us exactly how he felt and what we should do and how we got to get better. So, you know, the one thing you got to respect out of Deggs is he's gonna give you the full story, and whether you like it or not. So I'm bought in. I was bought in last season. I think, like you said, it takes a while for a guy to come out of. You think about what he had to navigate, Jerry. He had to navigate our head coach passing away. He had to navigate having our coaching staff still intact. He didn't want to fire any guys. He couldn't really make it his. He had players that he couldn't really make it his. It took a couple seasons. But despite all of that, 2 years in a row, we've made it to a regional. I mean, the results are there. It can be frustrating along the way, you know, like the Napier wins. Napier wanted to make you pull your hair out sometimes, but in the end, he accomplished what the goal was, right?
Yeah.
So I think, again, when we're navigating through the early part of the schedule, we just got to be patient. We got to figure out the bullpen. We got to figure out some of our starting pitching. But the end result is still going to be, I think, at the end of the day, what we expect. Now, I want to do better than 1-2 in a regional. And I think that's, again, raising our expectations. And again, Deggs is not going to argue with me. He's going to come on and say, hell yeah, that wasn't good enough. We need to make it to Omaha. He's going to say that every year. That's what I like out of a head coach. Glasgow does it. He does it. There are expectations set way high, because if you don't set the expectations, you'll never get there. So that's what I like to see out of a head coach. I like to see the honesty. I like to see the communication. And I like to see those goals set really high, because that's where we all want to be. It's been 24 years since we've been to Omaha. That's way too long. We need to get back there, and we can. And I feel like we have the right pieces in place to get there in the next season or two.
And it's been 9 years since we've been to a super regional, so we're kind of due for that as well. I was laughing when you talked about how Deggs doesn't make excuses, because after, I believe it was Louisiana Tech last year. Now, we beat them at home, but we went on the road and we were up by like 4 or 5 runs, and our bullpen just collapsed. I mean, they gave up a grand slam. They gave up, I think, 2 or 3 more runs. It was like 7 or 8 unanswered runs. And I just remembered in the post-game interview on the field, we were actually able to hear him in the post-game interview, because I know sometimes the mic cuts off, but Top goes down to interview him. And I think there were like 3 or 4 times where Deggs straight up, because Top was like, hey, look, coach, I know not the best night. Your hitters were great. Trying to be positive, man. Your hitters were great, but man, I know the pitching just gave up 1 or 2 pitches, and that was a difference in the game. Deggs just went off for like a good, 5 minutes. He kept saying, it's really a shame, man. It's a shame. He kept saying, it's a shame. We gave up our pitching staff, man. Our hitters hit so well, but it's a shame. And for some reason, I'm listening to it. As frustrated as I was to lose to Tech, I could not help but start laughing. He just kept going, Top, it's a shame, man. But you know what I saw out of that? I saw a coach, even in a midweek loss, that wasn't happy. I saw a coach that realized, hey, we can't play like this even on a Tuesday night if we expect to win the weekend series going into the postseason. And that's what I want out of our coach, which actually brings me to the next question with you guys. Josh, you may know where I'm going with this. Deggs says he wants to go to Omaha. Glasgow says he wants to go to Oklahoma City. When they come up short, let's say, for instance, Deggs, we lose in a regional last year. Glasgow loses in a super. Is it considered under it? Now, I know the answer to this, but I want to ask you your guys' opinion. Is it really underachievement if you just make a regional when your goal is Omaha? Or is it still a huge achievement that your team made it to a regional in spite of the fact that maybe your expectations were higher? So, for example, like in other sports, like maybe March Madness in basketball, right? Going to the dance is a big deal. But is going to the dance too low of an expectation, or trying to make a run at the Sweet 16 an expectation to where if you lose in the first round of the dance and you don't make the Sweet 16, it's not as much of an achievement? I wanted your guys' opinion on that, because I have heard fans say that, well, Deggs wants to go to Omaha. He only makes regionals. I don't know if that's good enough. What do you guys think about that?
Before Deggs got here, when was the last time we made a regional? 16?
It had been 6 years, correct?
Yeah. So I'm not going to say, look, I'm never going to be pissed with making a regional in either sport. Now, what I want to see is improvement. Show me improvement. Show me the last couple of years we went 1 and 2, I think. Let's do better than that. I need to see that after a while, right? But when you understand that they've got 300 schools playing college softball and baseball
for 64 spots,
right? And there are 64 spots. Getting there is an achievement, and the fact that we got there as an at-large last year in baseball, that's a hell of an achievement. So look, if we make a regional for the next 10 years, I'm not going to be pissed about it. Now, do I want to see every couple of years making a super? Yeah. I mean, you look at quote Power 5 programs, they're not making a super regional every year necessarily, but every couple of years, every 3 years, they're getting there. That's what I want to see. I'd like to see Jerry get back to a super regional next year and win a couple of games, or maybe make it to Oklahoma City. But I'm not going to fire a guy for making it to a super regional 2 years in a row. I'm not going to criticize a guy for making it to a regional 3 years in a row. I would like to see improvement. I would like to see us, really. I'm not going to say I was disappointed in our regional performance last year, but I felt like there were opportunities for us to do a little better. And I think just the pitching, I think our bullpen really wasn't there last year. But I think when you look at the talent that we have coming this year, you want to win a couple of games and really be in the finals in the regional. That's for me in baseball what I want to see. I want to see us be in the regional finals competing to get in that super regional. For softball, I want to see us back in the supers, but I don't want to see us play freaking LSU for the 18th year in a row. Send us somewhere else. Give us another chance. Look, I'm a big anti-TSAT person as anybody else, but the fact of the matter is I'd like to see more than one Louisiana team have the opportunity to make it to Oklahoma City. I'd love to meet TSAT in Oklahoma City. I think that'd be great for the state and for softball in general. So the point is, don't take this for granted, because you saw JMU. They were really good. They made it to Oklahoma City, and last year they didn't move the needle for anybody. Just because you've had success for so many years doesn't mean that can't go away. So enjoy it while it's here. I'm not going to be disappointed ever making it to a regional. Eventually, if we make it 3, 4, 5 years and we're still not getting to supers, I may get a little agitated. But again, since Dex got here, we hadn't made it since 16. That was a pretty long stretch for our expectations. So no, I'm not gonna hate on anybody for making it to regionals, because that gives you a chance. That's all you need. That's all you want, is a chance to move up, in my opinion.
My opinion is that everything is relative. I think that if you make reasonable goals, but lofty goals, that's reasonable. If you've been a coach of a program for 14 years and you think that making it to the final is good enough, well, I don't know. And I'm talking about in the conference tournament. If you feel like winning the league is a goal, I'm there. But every program is different, even at our own school. Like Deggs comes in with a pedigree. Deggs is what we consider to be one of those upper echelon coaches in the profession. Deggs has already fielded 2 out of 3 regional teams. If we continue to just be regional teams, then yeah, I think that people will say, hey, we're starting to underachieve here. However, he's going to tell you he wants to go to Omaha every year, and he means it. He's not just saying it. It's not just fluff. Deggs really wants to and expects to go back to Omaha. And I think we all trust him when he says that. We buy into that because we know what we're capable of. We know how our fans, we know our standard. We know what we invest. We know all this stuff. Softball, I can say the same thing. Like, is Oklahoma City a lofty goal? Not really. We've made it there multiple times. We can get back there again. That's our standard. As far as football, it's a completely different animal because, look, we were high on the horse. We got knocked off, and we're building our ways back up. Next year, if Dez goes 8-4, I think that I'll say, look, great. I don't know what your goal was. I don't know what your standard was this year, but 8-4 and a good bowl game, I'm happy. If he does it 3 years in a row, we're underachieving. Like, you've got to constantly be building towards something that's bigger than what you've already done. You can't be a 14-year coach getting the same results or doing the same roller coaster ride, down, up, down, up, down, up. That's our issue with Marlon. The issue with Marlon is that he doesn't set these goals. Jerry talks about how the Rebounders Club will say, well, Marlon didn't tell us he was going to go to the Final Four, and then he didn't, and now, he didn't underachieve. That is the dumbest ass thing I've ever heard. Jerry, you manage portfolios. If you said, all right, I got, my goal this year is a 25% return. If you don't hit 25%, nobody's going to look at you and say, well, you idiot, why didn't you get us to 25%? But if you hit 17, 18%, you're a freaking golden god. So achieve is cowardice. It's loser mentality, like we talk about. I want my coach to say, I expect to be in Omaha because he really believes it. And he's really trying to get his team to Omaha. I don't need to be lied to or fluffed up. I'm still going to watch the games. But I also don't want to be propagandized either. Well, it's a one-bid league. It's just too hard to win. We can't win on the road. Basketball's dead in the South. I don't want to hear that. I don't have my coach in baseball telling me that, or basketball or softball telling me that, or football. I don't hear it. You know how many times Latif could have said, well, the Sun Belt is trash. How do you expect me to get out of this league? The Sun Belt's garbage. How am I going to get RPI points to have a good seed to get to Oklahoma City? How many times did he say that? 0 times. How many times did Napier come in here and say, well, the West is terrible. How can I get any respect? It's just ridiculous. I expect my coaches to set lofty goals, and if we don't hit the goals, at least we landed somewhere among the respectable programs in this country. Deg says he wants to go to Omaha. I believe him. If we end up in the damn super, all right, well, we didn't get to the goal, but we accomplished something. So, yeah, I know you were trying to set me up to get me on a rant. So I'm going to stop short of the rant. But
yeah, I don't know how we got in basketball, but yes, he was setting you up.
I think the point the juxtaposition is Marlon doesn't set lofty goals because he doesn't want to overachieve or underachieve, but Deggs will get up there and say, I want to go to Omaha. And then when we don't go to Omaha, the Basketball Rebounders Club or the People's Republic of the Rebounders will say, well, at least I'm not getting smoke blown up my skirt, all this bullshit. It's like, dude, the man set a goal and we got to a regional and we looked like we belong against Texas and Miami, and we didn't even have all our pieces. Like, we didn't have the pitching staff that we were supposed to have last year. And we still competed with 2 of the best teams in the country. What do you think this man's going to do with a real pitching staff and some guys that's been in the program a few years and an All-American at shortstop? I'll go on record right now. I'm feeling good. All right. I think we win a regional in 2024. You heard it here first.
I love it. I love it, man.
Behind it. But the reason why I ask is because I find that our different sports have different expectations, when I feel like every sport should have the same expectation, and that's be the best you can be. Not necessarily, flying by the seat of your pants and hoping something good happens. I would love for basketball to say we want to go to the Sweet 16. Like Da Boots says it, right? Sweet 16. I'm like, hey, I'm all about the sweets. I'll take the Sweet 16. Hell yeah.
I'll take the Sweet 16. If you tell me right now, we're going to the Sweet 16 at the beginning of the basketball season, I'm buying season tickets, I'm giving to the Rebounders Club, and I'm going to be at every single game. I'll make some away games too. If that's how you feel about this program and you believe we can get there, I'm with you. That's the kind of program I want to support. You know what I mean? I mean, look, that how could you not support that? That's exciting.
You sell me in basketball that our goal is a Sweet 16 and we're gonna join in together. I will join the Rebounders Club and give money and do everything tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow, but I don't hear that.
But here's my problem.
Let's
Jerry.
see what happens, and if we do great, we'll hug and cry as if we made the Final Four for just making the tournament. It's not
my problem is we've got football where our goal is to win the conference every year, and we've got a damn good conference in football. Baseball, we want to win it. We want to get to Omaha, and we've got a damn good baseball league. In softball, it's
getting better.
Softball's getting better because of us. But you got JMU, you've got South Alabama that's on the rise, you've got us, you've got teams on the rise, and we achieve to get to Oklahoma City. Basketball ain't that basketball ain't that good. I'm sorry, we're not a good basketball league. We have to get better. Our entire league needs to schedule better. And you're not even stating what your goals are. Like, your goals should be, we got into the NCAA last year, improve this year. But instead, you've got excuses as to why we can't do it or why we couldn't do it. There's no more. I'm tired of the, again, like you said, Jerry, we got to stop holding every sport to different standards, different accountability. Like, our goal in every sport should be to win the league.
Can I brag on Marlon a little bit more? I know that the world's going to flip upside down, but you got to give the man credit. It's freaking genius to set no goals because you can't underachieve when you set no goals. It's freaking brilliant.
It's true. But also too, that's why basketball right now, in spite of the last 2 wins, in spite of the fact that they're on a roll right now, that's why they're averaging 1,900 people a game, because people are not going to support that. People are not going to back that up and say, yeah, I want to join that. I want to get in on that. When you have no goals, or when you don't have really a message to sell, that you want to go do something like, because if I were to go tell a basketball booster, I don't know, anybody, hey, our goal should be the Sweet 16, or any booster for that matter, they'd most likely they'd look at me like I'm nuts. What do you mean? We can't make the Sweet 16. We don't have a history here. We can't do this. Culture of can't. Why does it hurt to try? It may not be real. It may not be real. Why is that? Why is it such a sin to try and say, hey, maybe we can do it? Other teams have done it. Why can't we do it? Why not us?
Jerry, I think the better question is, why are we dumping on basketball when they just blew out Texas State, man? We got to let it live them up. This is not the day to dump on basketball. They're having a great night. They're coming back to Dave and Buster's, baby.
Oh my God. It's the big picture, man. It's the big picture. I mean, what we saw tonight is like an appetizer of what should be more consistently.
Well, next 3 games we're winning because DeBoot said so, and he's 2-0. We got the next 3. I'm telling you, the dude he's good at what he does. He can predict wins.
Gypsy witch. I mean,
he's a gypsy witch.
We're gonna call him
down to Bayou.
The Bootstradamus, like Nostradamus, the Bootstradamus. That's his new name. But look, we need more passionate fans like the Boot, man. We love the Boot. The man is he's like a Cajun soothsayer. It's great.
A traitor.
We need more of him. That's the name of one of the things we were talking about. Maybe that's earlier today.
I just had one a second ago. Oh, the Shaws. The Shaws. That might be it. But no, I love the Boot. I hope he didn't think I don't like him. I bust his balls on the internet, but I love the Boot.
Well, you're gonna love him more after he spanks your booty in 1-on-1, right?
Please, son. I'm gonna take the Boot to school.
So real quickly, okay, well, now that we went on a tangent, but one more thing I wanted to talk about real quickly before we go. So the last month we've been absent from episodes. We've had a little bit of tiffs on social media with, let's see, JMU, some of the TSAP faithful. How many conflicts have we gone through in the past 30 days? It's almost like, because Nick, look, let's start off with Nick's beautiful graphic. If there were a bowl game in Baton Rouge, Nick created this beautiful graphic, which got so big on Twitter. I think you triggered like 30 or 40% of the entire fan base in Baton Rouge. Josh has triggered the entire JMU fan base and has actually gotten some Sunbelt members on our side there, to where now when we do something that has nothing to do with them, they're retweeting us and quote tweeting us about stuff. And I'm just sitting back watching the fireworks. I'm enjoying every second of it. I'm loving it. But of course I'm on the Razor Review app and we'll try to be a little witty and clever. But I gotta admit, we sit back and do this as a hobby. We sit back and enjoy this. It's all fun. But there's some people that like debate us and argue with us that really get either passionate or legitimately upset by it.
What's that guy's name from TSAB? The one that hates me?
Preston Miguez.
Preston thinks that he is responsible for all of the views and interactions I have on the X app. So thank you, Preston, for all of the success I have in life. If it were not for you, I would have none of the 150,000 views I had from that and the 100,000 views I have on other things I share on that app. Appreciate you, brother, because without you, I would never be where I am today. Imagine getting paid to do that and trash talking fans of a podcast, of a fan podcast, and thinking, oh, well, you don't get nearly as many views as I do. I shouldn't, because I don't get paid for this. I'm doing that. This is a hobby, and I still outdo you. Whatever, dude. Whatever. Shaws. Anyway, it's easy, Jerry. The fan bases that think that they are so far superior than we are the most vulnerable to us triggering them over simple stuff. Like a certain school in Hattiesburg, when you say attendance, holy cow.
They wait for it too.
Lose their minds.
They wait for it.
I even got Destiny saying I make her eye twitch. Well, twitch
they
away,
wait
baby.
for it. When somebody takes a picture of the crowd at the Southern Miss Arena, there's always one person that, like, there's always going to be one fan you can count on to say something like, "Here comes Nick. Here comes Nick." Like they just know it's on cue.
It's so easy because they started it, and now that I point out that your attendance sucks too, it's a list of excuses. Well, the students are out. Well, they're all on the roost. Well, they're this. Where they're like, in the end, I really don't care. I'm just trying to trigger you, and you're buying into it. So congratulations. It's easy.
It's a love.
It really is.
It's a love hate with Southern Miss. We've made some good friends there, but it's fun to trash talk, and they go back and forth. I actually enjoy the back and forth with Southern Miss. Now, I do too,
because there's a mutual respect there. No matter what, there is a mutual respect, and we're in the same conference. And when we're not playing each other, we do pull for each other. Absolutely. And plus, we both hate TSAB, and they say TSAB, so I'm cool with them.
Now, JMU is a different story. I was very intrigued. So to give a backstory, Josh and I are at the basketball game, and we're actually in the corner where that little tiffle broke out, that fight at the end of the game. And so I'm literally at the bottom of the section. So I said, "Josh, dude, I got to film this." He goes, "Yeah, go ahead and film it." So I'm filming it, and it's about 30 or 40 seconds. And as I'm like, well, look, I'm gonna tweet this out. I'm going to put it all over social media. And I know it's going to create drama, so why not? Well, then all of a sudden, there's a few JMU fans that are calling us trashy people and calling us names. And I'm thinking, what, you think the players for JMU just sat by and didn't do anything? And they're, oh, the Cajuns are sore losers and always the Cajuns starting something. When we find out from witnesses that were literally by the court that it was a JMU guy who wasn't even dressed out, apparently got into the face of one of our assistant coaches. And then that starts going back and forth. And then, of course, they were bragging about how they ended our streak. Well, then JMU goes to Hattiesburg, gets beat by double digits. So Josh definitely used the bookmark button on Twitter. And I think he probably quote tweeted at least 30 to 40. I think I counted like over 30 quote tweets that man had after the loss to JMU. So I think Man About Town is officially public enemy number one of the entire JMU fan base. Josh, explain yourself.
They earned every second of it. I mean, first of all, they caught me on a night where I was sitting on the couch watching football, I think is what it was. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to remember all this because this team is average. This is not, we should have beaten them. I mean, honestly, with a couple of different calls, specifically against Julian throughout that game, we would have beaten that team. And I thought they were fraudulent. So I'd let their fan base know it because they were running their mouths on Twitter. So I just told them that they were all frauds and I'd be coming back to remind them. And sure enough, they went to Southern Miss and lost, and then they went to App and lost. And I just reminded them that they didn't win that day, and I reminded them what I thought of them as a fan base and people as individuals. And I mean, excuse my French, they're the bitchiest bunch of people that we've ever come across in this conference.
Okay, first of all, can I say this before you go on? They're Liberty fans, but with better education. That's why they hate each other. They're literally the same.
I'm only giving them a slight benefit of the doubt because they're conference mates. Liberty has 90% of their classes online or 80% of their classes online. So I'll give them that. At least they go to the building.
But Josh, 2.96.
2.96 GPA, something we certainly can't,
That's right.
We can only imagine being at that level. But look, dude, JMU sucks. I was one of the biggest proponents of getting JMU in the league and their athletic success. It is what it is, and I'm thrilled about that. I'm glad to be associated. But the people that are their mouthpieces on the social accounts and those fans, the worst. They make Southern Miss look like, I feel bad for Southern Miss compared to it's embarrassing what they say. And the thing is the trash talk is it's not fun. It's not clever. It's not creative. It's boring. It's the same old repetitive Twitter. I'm gonna copy this guy and then act like it's my own, like that.
It's FCS.
It wasn't
FCS.
even like, it's FCS level trash talk. It's embarrassing. Like you came to a gunfight with a toothpick. It was embarrassing. I was trying to have fun with these people and I just walked away feeling sorry for them. But anyway, I love sports hate. We don't have enough sports hate in this country. I'm glad that the Sun Belt is developing some sports hatred. Like App State, it's respectful. You know what I mean? And we don't really hate each other. It's a rivalry, but it's kind of like almost too respectful. It's like, let's have a respect off. You know, like it's too much. And then Texas State has been so bad for so long, you don't even think of them. South Alabama, I mean, outside of baseball, do you really even? It used to be basketball and baseball. Now it's like, they suck. You know, I don't know, man. I'm glad to have another rivalry. I know they're in the East, but they just are the worst. They cry when they win. They're the best thing there ever was. They invented football. They invented it. How did football get played before this? When they lose, oh well, it's because of the legislature in Virginia, and it's every other damn thing. There's an excuse every time they lose, and there's they're the best thing that ever happened when they win. So I wanted to let them know that they need to come back down to reality. And shout out to Nick. Nick called it way before anybody else. He was sick of the petitions and the petitions about the petitions. He was sick about it way before anybody else started calling him out. So Nick called it. But, it was time that they got put in their place, and they all hate Man About Town. I can tell you that.
Well, that's the thing. So Nick, I remember you were talking about this back in like October, November when JMU was trying to get the petitions to go to the bowl game. And it was to the point where like they were not only trying to get petitions through the bowl game, but they were getting like their attorney general to join in. I think the governor or lieutenant governor was joining in. And they got denied every time. And then they finally get to the bowl game and then they lose. And for me, it was more along the lines of, look, I supported that. I actually supported them, let them in a bowl game. I know the rules. The rules are terrible. They're going to have to change the rules if, for the transitional stuff, but they still got in. But then after the basketball game, the way some of their fans were talking, I almost felt betrayed. I'm like, I'm trying to help you. I'm supporting you guys making a bowl game. And then you call us
bridges with everybody. That's
you call us trash. You call our players trash when one of your players started it? Like,
are you one of their podcasts saying that they belonged in the ACC and they, this trash conference, this and that, and because we wouldn't support them appealing for a 55th time to the NCAA to tell them no, they can't go to a freaking playoff or bowl game. Like, it was just getting beyond ridiculous.
But Nick, they got their bowl game, and instead of being happy about it, they lose, and then they just withdraw the suit. Oh, never mind. Forget about it.
It was before that. They lost. It's when they lost to App State.
Oh, when they lost to App State in the championship
Not
game.
a peep. It was all gone.
They withdrew the lawsuit. Then I had an idiot fan try to tell me, oh, we had nothing to do with that lawsuit. Dude, your name is on the petition. We all saw it. These people, look, they live in an alternate universe.
And then they didn't realize the stupidity and the fact that the politicians that were doing all of this were doing it for votes.
Yes,
like, they didn't care about JMU. Right. They were just doing it for votes because they had a loud voice and they were going to make you happy and they were going to get your vote. They were too dumb to realize that.
So they're supposed to be the Harvard of the Sun Belt. They're not very smart, we find out. They got used by politicians. They bitched and complained their way into every Sun Belt Conference fan base hating their guts. And then they want to get mad at me? I was right.
But they'll be in the ACC soon enough, so don't worry about it, Josh.
They invented football. They're P4. They're P2. They're P1. They invented the power conferences too.
They're Tupac.
Look, I'll just say this, right? It's almost to the point where, like you said, sports hate is fun. It makes it fun. It creates narratives. It makes it exciting going into the matchups. Sometimes it's a little bit of overkill. I do find that some of the stuff they were talking about was a little bit of overkill. But man, it elevated so quickly.
I got to call you out on something because you were just saying, I'm just sitting back watching. Dude, you're texting us the tweets.
Oh, I am.
Like, look what they said, triggering us to be like, oh, no, MFer, let me show you. So you're not just sitting back going, oh, I'm not doing anything. Nah, you're starting all of this. You're just in the background starting it. I just want to clear that up.
We're out
I
here
just
doing
love-
the heavy lifting.
I just love the fireworks because of the fact that I know, because I'm just waiting for one of you to just, because here's the thing about both of y'all. What cracks me up is like Nick, you post the bowl game in Baton Rouge. You post one little graphic and it got like, what is it, like 300,000 views?
And for those out there that
Thanks
are
to
wondering,
Preston.
the embezzlement bowl was
Yeah, the embezzlement bowl. But thanks to Preston, I got 300,000 views. If it weren't for him, we'd be nowhere, man.
Look, this is why.
And you know what's a shame? Normally he would reach out to smaller podcasts like us for help because, in fact, he is a big deal, folks.
Look, guys, this podcast, we have electricity to allow to run this podcast because of him. Okay, so just y'all better recognize and appreciate. Okay. Well, that was fun. It was a good way to get back into 2024. Guys, I had a blast. I know you guys had a blast. So we'll be back really soon. We got some basketball coming up, baseball, softball on the way. Got lots more to talk about. Josh, let the secret out the bag. We expect to get Kendall Rogers in the next few weeks, right? Talk a little bit about that, Josh.
Well, he's on the schedule, so expect first week of February to hear from Kendall. We weren't able to connect last year because all kind of things happened, but they were launching a new situation with D1, and I waited too long, so that's on me. But we'll get a full scale interview like we have in the past with Kendall before. I expect it in the first week of February.
Very good. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight, guys. We actually stayed, again, we had a lot of stuff to make up for, so we stayed a little bit over time, but all good to catch up with all of you. Good to catch up with you guys. If you like what we do, please like, subscribe. Oh, Josh, you want to say something?
Just parting shots real quick. I was honored to join Dom and TJ on the Sunbelt Syndicate. They're doing a big Sunbelt show tonight with all the different podcasts and all the different fans. Going to be something that you guys want to check out. We were involved in 14 others, I believe. So that I want to give a huge shout out to Tiny Island for making this custom shirt. They're not for sale. They're only for me. Also, Cam is selling Girl Scout cookies, so if you need Thin Mints, holler at your boy. And that's all.
I like Girl Scout cookies. They're good. Thin Mints are good. I might have
to.
Yeah.
I'll put the link in the thing. Or no, just go to my my Twitter there. It's there. Kanai Matt, at Kanai Matt.
There you go. Well, yeah, Girl Scout cookies. I like it. Once again, thanks to our sponsors, Recovery Chiromed, Dr. Brett Venable, as well as Absolutely Embroidery and more. Don't forget to please give to Crew Our Law. In the changing world of NIL, Louisiana has one too. Got to help keep our student athletes happy. Again, give to NIL anywhere from $20 to $20,000. It's all good. If you like what we do, want to give us feedback, please like, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and TikTok. You can listen to us via audio as well as on Apple iTunes and Spotify. Nick will have this episode up once he gets it done. Thank you guys so much. We always enjoyed it. Josh, Nick, always a pleasure. I'm Jerry with the Rage Review Podcast. We'll see you soon. In the words of the late, great Big Dave Thibodeau, bye, we out of here. See you next time for some more Rage Review.
We went to church every Sunday. We had a French-speaking preacher man. The kids joked about the preacher man, 'cause we thought he wore a dress. After church we have a party.